Chapter 512. When Huan of Northern Qi and Lu Zan brought dozens of people into the forest, they saw the black-clothed man standing there with an unsheathed sword. The night was dark, and his expression could not be seen, but they could faintly feel the strong aura emanating from him. "Who exactly are you?" Huan of Northern Qi laughed coldly, and with a swipe of his finger, he pulled out the dagger at his waist. The dagger glowed with a faint earthy sheen. It was another low-grade artifact. Lu Zan narrowed his eyes, and with his hand on the hilt of his sword he said, "Kid, no matter who you are, provoking the Northern Qi government today is a mistake you should never have made, heh?" The black-clothed man lightly gripped the hilt of his sword, his face full of righteous indignation. He said, "You killed my young master, Li Zua. This debt of blood must be paid in blood. Do you know how good young master Li Zua was to us guards? He was a very loyal person. That year, when we were hunting in the mountains, we were caught by bandits. The bandits forced us to drink urine. Do you know? In order to protect us, young master Li Zua drank all the urine, an entire bucket. After he finished, guess what? He wiped his mouth and asked the bandits if he could have a refill. Another time, we went up the mountain again and got caught by bandits. Those bandits had a special hobby. In order to save us, young master endured the humiliation alone. His chrysanthemum went in and sunflower came out. God knows how painful it was. Such a loyal young master was killed by you. I don't care who you are, but you must die in this forest today." Huan of Northern Qi looked angry and embarrassed. "So you are Li Zua's guard? A mere guard dares to challenge me? Come, for your courage, I will use this local book to send you to the next world." A third sound. Lu Zan put a hand on Huan of Northern Qi's dagger and said, "There is no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Leave this kid to me. It just so happens that my quick sword hasn't tasted blood in a long time." "Oh." Huan of Northern Qi laughed. "Since General Lu is in the mood, I will leave this kid to you." "All right." Lu Zan laughed heartily as he slowly pulled out his sword. It was a long sword that glowed with a green light. It should be a profound rank 7 weapon. It was rare for a mercenary leader like Lu Zan to have such a long sword. After he pulled out his sword, his face was filled with a sinister smile as he said, "A mere guard dares to challenge me? Brat, you've got guts. Tell me your name. This daddy's sword will never kill a nameless ghost." The person in black was naturally Lin Muyu. She couldn't help but smile. "There's no need. You're already a dead man anyway." Impudent. Lu Zan didn't ask for a name. His battle boots stepped on the soft snow as he charged forward. A wave of raging Jinqi flew around him, and a fire wolf martial spirit appeared in front of his chest. This person's cultivation wasn't too low. He was actually in the second tier of the Earth realm. Unfortunately, in front of Lin Muyu, this kind of cultivation was too insignificant. The star's sword didn't even leave its sheath. Just as Lu Zan's sharp sword was less than 6 feet away from Lin Muyu's chest, he suddenly raised his head. His handsome face was filled with murderous intent. The Holy King Realm domain suddenly condensed into a small-scale storm that enveloped Lu Zan. Whoosh! Lu Zan's mind was a complete blank. In that instant, he almost couldn't control his mind. A powerful pressure came from all around him, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Yes, at this moment, he felt as if he had fallen into purgatory and was surrounded by a group of ghosts. That kind of hair-raising, hopeless feeling was not something a normal person could endure. Arg! Lu Zan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His pupils rapidly enlarged. His entire body was ice-cold as he fell into the snow. His body trembled slightly. He had actually died under the pressure of the domain. Lin Muyu's gaze froze. She hadn't thought that Lu Zan, the leader of a mercenary group, would be so weak that he could actually be scared to death by the illusion brought by the domain's pressure. She really didn't know how this kind of cowardly rat had become a mercenary, or even a leader of a mercenary group. "General Lu?" Huan of Northern Qi was startled. He hurriedly signaled with his eyes. "Quick, go take a look." A mercenary walked forward and felt Lu Zan's breath. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. His face pale, he said, "Leader, he's already dead." "My God, what happened?" Huan of Northern Qi was dumbfounded. He hurriedly raised his dagger and angrily shouted in a low voice, "Who are you? What despicable method did you use to kill Luzon? Lin Muyu didn't speak. She only looked at him indifferently. Instead, a mercenary to the side whispered in his ear. Second master, the leader bled from every orifice and died. I suspect he was poisoned. This kid might be an expert in poisons. Juan of Northern Chi's slightly handsome face instantly twisted. He said, poisoned? Bastard, you dared to kill my people. I'll let you have a taste of the heavenly book. As he spoke, Juan of Northern Chi gently flicked his wrist. The inscriptions on the dagger suddenly appeared. A yellow light shot into the sky, and with a whoosh, it lit up the horizon. But just as his low-grade earthly book was activated, a shadow swept past. The entire process of Lin Muyu's stellar sword being unsheathed and sheathed did not take more than half a second. In the blink of an eye, it had already returned to its original position. Juan of Northern Chi was stunned. The next moment, he felt a chill on his right wrist. In the next second he felt a sharp pain. His entire wrist had been directly cut off by Lin Muyu's sword. The dagger with the low-grade earthly book had disappeared without a trace. Juan of Northern Chi suddenly knelt on the ground. This young master of an aristocratic family had never been so seriously injured. The pain caused his forehead to be covered in sweat, and he almost fainted. The group of mercenaries and guards stared with their mouths agape. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the mercenaries had run away, and there were not many guards left. No one had clearly seen Lin Muyu's movements, but they knew that it was the guard of Li Zhua's family who had acted. Otherwise, Juan of Northern Chi's hand would not have been cut off. Don't run. Juan of Northern Chi knelt on the ground, his face full of pain. In a loud voice he said, all mercenaries, stop. Kill him. The person who cuts off his head will be rewarded with 1 million Jin coins. The group of mercenaries were all bloodthirsty outlaws. Once they heard 1 million, they all stopped in their tracks. Lin Muyu played with Juan of Northern Chi's low-grade earthly book embryo dagger. She smiled and said, if this earthly book is activated, killing someone in the Iha kingdom, it shouldn't be a crime, right? If any of you want to try the power of this low-grade earthly book, then feel free to try. The pain of the wind blade cutting through your body shouldn't be too great, right? You. The mercenaries didn't care about 1 million. They turned and ran. In the blink of an eye, they were all gone, leaving only a few guards standing there with ashen faces. One of the middle-aged guards seemed to be in the first tier of the Earth realm. He could be considered the only decent warrior in the group. Only he had the courage to go forward and help Juan of Northern Chi up. He said, Second Master, we've run into a tough opponent today. We can only admit defeat. Let's go back to the inn first. We can't stay here. Your wound needs to be bandaged. Juan of Northern Chi struggled with all his might. No, Uncle Zhang, I still have a earthly book embryo. I want to kill this bastard who ruined my hand. There's still a weapon embryo. Lin Muyu's gaze swept over, and found that there was an exquisite dimensional bag on Juan of Northern Chi's waist. It must be in this dimensional bag. Thus, Lin Muyu leaped forward and opened her hand to grab the dimensional bag. Don't go too far. The guard called Uncle Zhang suddenly swept his fist over. His fist was full of power. This person's martial arts cultivation was indeed not bad. Unfortunately, his opponent was Lin Muyu, a warrior in the Holy King realm. Her 5 fingers suddenly turned into a palm. Lin Muyu used her strength lightly, and, relying only on the strength of her body, forcefully slapped Uncle Zhang's fist. With a bang, the Jinchi whirlpool surged. Uncle Zhang took a step back. Lin Muyu took advantage of the situation to grab the dimensional bag on Juan of Northern Chi's waist and forcefully took it. She smiled slightly and said, Thank you, Second Master of Northern Chi, for your reward. This is compensation for killing young Master Li Zhua. As she spoke, Lin Muyu turned around and with a few leaps, disappeared into the night. Don't go. Juan of Northern Chi's face was full of anger and embarrassment as he roared. Second Master. Uncle Zhang looked at Lin Muyu's back in the distance and said, Forget it, this person's cultivation is too high. I'm afraid there are no such masters in Bailing City. How is that possible? Juan of Northern Chi said in shock. Bailing City is full of talents. There are many masters in the President's Manor, And Marshal Ji Yao and Marshal Long Qianlin are also very skilled. Is this kid's cultivation above Ji Yao and Long Qianlin? Uncle Zhang shook his head. Commander Ji and Commander Long are only at the heaven realm. This person. I can faintly feel that he held back 90% of his strength. Just now he scared Luzon to death. That wasn't because he was scared to death, but because he was pressured to death. This person is at least at the sanctuary realm. His voice sounds so young. How many young sanctuary realm experts are there in Iha Nation? Swift White Province is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Second Master. We've offended someone we shouldn't have. Let's go back and heal. Huan of Northern Qi's face was twisted. He said, Holy Realm Master, so what? The Northern Qi family is favored by the commander. I will definitely gather people to Swift White Province. If I don't uproot the Li family, I swear I'm not a man. Yes, let's go back and heal. Uncle Zhang's expression was dark and uncertain. His heart was in turmoil. In the short exchange just now, he could feel that his opponent was unfathomable. Furthermore, he felt that the opponent had not used his full strength. Otherwise, his group of people would probably already be corpses. The opponent hadn't even used a single martial art move. This meant that he wanted to hide his identity. Just who was this black-clothed Li family guard? At the back of the inn, the back window of a room on the second floor opened wide. With a swoosh, two figures flew into the room. After closing the window, Lin Muyu was about to burst into laughter. She threw Huan of Northern Qi's dimensional bag onto the table and laughed. This group of idiots, I'm dying of laughter. With their level of cultivation, they're still fighting here. Any random person in the heaven realm would be able to kill them all. Qin Yin, who had been watching the battle, was also smiling and blushing. She said, Li Zhua's death is not to be regretted. But you, why didn't you kill Huan of Northern Qi just now? Leave this kind of idiot for Iha Kingdom. It's good for us. Besides, we are people who practice martial ethics. If there's no need to kill, we shouldn't kill. Yes, Xiaoyin knows. I can do it too. Let's not talk about this. Let's see what good things are in Huan of Northern Qi's dimensional bag. Chapter 513. Lin Muyu opened the dimensional bag and shook it on the table. With a clatter, a battle axe fell out. Golden characters slowly flowed on the battle axe. It was another tool embryo that had become a book. Looking at its luster, it was still a low-grade earth book embryo. Although Huan of Northern Qi was only a playboy, he had many treasures on him. A low-grade earth book of the law of earth. Lin Muyu picked up the battle axe, waved it around, and threw it into her Qingkuan bag. Smiling, she said, I'll kindly accept it. This thing might be useful in the White Leaves Forest. Let's see if there's anything else. Yes. Qin Yin knelt on the bed to the side. Full of interest, she grabbed Huan of Northern Qi's dimensional bag and shook it again. Her expression was full of anticipation, like a beautiful kitten waiting for cuteness. Clatter. Another item fell on the table. This time it was a glowing jade pendant. The jade pendant glowed with a medium orange light. This mid-grade spiritual book was actually written on a jade pendant. It was not easy. However, the tool embryo's carrying capacity was not strong enough. So the power of this mid-grade spiritual book was destined to be very ordinary. This kind of thing was suitable for the playboys of nobility to wear. In a battlefield or a place of slaughter, it probably would not be of much use. A mid-grade spiritual book of the law of fire. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Xiaoyin, keep it. This is more suitable for you. Yes, okay. Qin Yin smiled and nodded. Lin Muyu held the dimensional bag and continued to shake it. With a few clatters, a few heavy wooden boxes fell on the table. One of them had already been opened. Inside was a shiny golden powder. It was black gold powder. Looking at the color and composition, it should be mid-grade black gold powder. Huan of Northern Qi was indeed a playboy. He had too many treasures on him. After arranging the wooden boxes in a row, Qin Yin smiled so widely that she could not close her mouth. At least 2.5 kilograms of mid-grade black gold powder. We're rich. We won't have to buy black gold powder for a long time. Yes, Xiaoyin, keep it well. Let's see if there are any other treasures. Yes. Qin Yin shook her dimensional bag again, and a few bags of money fell out. There were piles of gold coins, dozens of diamond coins, and a pile of gold notes. Northern Chi's Huan was simply too rich. He carried nearly 100,000 gold and diamond coins with him. This was not something a typical rich second-generation heir could compare to. At that moment, an exquisitely crafted leather whip fell out of the interspatial bag with a clatter. Qin Yin was stunned. "What's this?" "I don't know." With another pa-da sound, several candles fell out, as well as a ball-shaped object stuffed in the mouth. In an instant, Lin Muyu was dumbfounded and understood what the hell was going on. This. Qin Yin grabbed the mouthpiece and thought for a moment with her brows furrowed. "Is this a warhorse accessory?" Flustered, Lin Muyu replied. "Although it's meant for riding, it's not a warhorse accessory." "Alright, these are useless." Xiao Yin put them down. Qin Yin looked at the whip and the candles again. She seemed to have thought of something. Although her father, Qin Jin, had been diligent and thrifty all his life, and did not even have a concubine, there were many of these things in the mansions of other nobles in Lanyan City. Qin Yin had heard rumors about these things from the maids. In an instant, Qin Yin's little face flushed red. She lowered her head, too embarrassed to look anymore. The candles fell to the ground with a pa-da sound. "Ah, don't waste it." Lin Muyu picked up the candles and said, "This can be used to light a fire during camping." "Oh." Qin Yin blushed. She took the candles again, but they burned her hands. Blushing, she threw the candles into her space bag. Then she sneaked a glance at Lin Muyu and happened to meet his gaze. Immediately, she did not dare to look at him. Although she was an empress, Qin Yin was still a young girl who had not come into contact with this field. At this moment, her extremely bashful look was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. "Xiao Yin, what are you thinking about?" Lin Muyu asked teasingly. "I'm not." Qin Yin pouted and argued. "I'm not thinking about those things. I didn't say anything, but you confessed yourself." Lin Muyu sat down at the side and took out a few magic crystal coins to play with. "Woo-woo." Qin Yin looked at him with watery eyes. She did not speak, but her eyes clearly said, "You're bullying me." It was simply pitiful. Lin Muyu did not dare to look at Qin Yin's beauty again. Otherwise he might make a mistake. This was not good. After all, there did not seem to be Durex or Yuding in this era. If the news of the Empress being pregnant got out after her adventure in the Swift White Province, it would be a great harm to Qin Yin. Some things were better left for later. That night, Huan of Northern Qi's wrist was cut off, and Li Jue died. She did not know if the Li Manor would really come looking for trouble, so Lin Muyu did not dare to be careless. She did not return to her room, but sat at Qin Yin's bedside to practice the stellar technique and the heavenly book cultivation method. Meanwhile, Qin Yin practiced for a while with Lin Muyu's company, and then slowly fell asleep. At daybreak, there was a lot of noise outside. It was obvious that someone was quarreling, and there was the sound of horses' hooves coming from outside the post house. Something was probably going to happen again, but it was none of his business. The Iha Nation's business would be settled by the Iha Nation, and Lin Muyu did not intend to interfere. What he wanted to do was to fan the flames and make the fire of the Iha Nation as big as possible. Qin Yin slowly woke up. His body was full of fighting energy. After last night's practice of the dragon-slaying formula and the heavenly book cultivation method, his fighting energy seemed to be even purer. He looked up and saw that Lin Muyu was taking a short rest with her eyes closed. He did not disturb her. He put on his shoes, got out of bed, and went to fetch water to wash his face. In the lobby of the post house, a group of people dressed in the Iha Nation's patrol uniforms stood there, surrounding the post house so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. When they saw Qin Yin carrying a basin of water downstairs, they all took a second look. But no one suspected that this girl dressed like a hunter would kill the young master of the Li Manor, Li Jue. So after washing up and eating breakfast, when Lin Muyu and Qin Yin went downstairs together, they saw from afar that Huan of Northern Qi, Uncle Zhang, and the others had also come downstairs. A patrol leader came forward, raised his arm and said, "Sir, please stay. Was the murder case in the post house last night committed by you?" "Yes." Huan of Northern Qi did not deny it, and said, "Li Jue of the Li Manor molested a good girl. And after I stopped him, he became angry out of humiliation and wanted to fight with the heavenly book, so I killed him with the low-grade earthly book. According to the heavenly book law of the Iha nation, I am not guilty. Sir, do you need to know anything else? Sir, please show your identity. Humph. Huan of Northern Qi laughed coldly and took out a token from his bosom and said, I am the second young master of the Northern Qi Manor, Huan of Northern Qi. Is that enough? The patrol leader was stunned and hurriedly took a few steps back, bowed, and said, I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, second young master. Since you are the second young master of the Northern Qi Manor, then this matter is over. Behind him, a middle-aged man dressed like a butler said unforgiving, Sir, he killed young master Li Zhua, and dozens of people saw it. Are we just going to let him go? And let Xiaoyao go beyond the law? The officer said coldly, according to the heavenly book law of the Iha nation, killing someone with the heavenly book is not guilty. Butler Li, I advise you not to pursue this matter. Butler Li was stunned. At this time, Huan of Northern Qi walked forward, and with a stern look, he said in a low voice, You are the butler of the Li Manor? Humph, I know that the Li family is a famous family in the Qingye County area. But just you wait, I will remember the revenge of cutting off my hand. Go back and tell that black-clothed guard of the Li Manor that the next time the Northern Qi family comes, we will bring thousands of troops and raze the Li Manor to the ground. You. Butler Li stared at Huan of Northern Qi, but didn't know what to say. After Huan of Northern Qi and the others had left, Butler Li said quietly, A black-clothed guard of the Li Manor. Who is that? When they arrived outside the post house, Lin Muyu took 2 war horses from the waiter. After Lin Muyu mounted Takshu, she felt her entire body relax. Qin Yin, on the other hand, bought an animal skin cloak from the post house and covered her beautiful face. Although her beautiful face was something to be proud of, a beautiful face could also bring about unnecessary trouble. Hence, it was better to cover it up to avoid a lot of trouble. Not far away, a group of people from the Northern Qi Manor also mounted their horses. The direction they set off in was the same as Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. Were they still going to the White Leaves Forest to search for the Heavenly Book Monolith Forest, after losing so many mercenaries? Lin Muyu furrowed her brows. The strongest person in this group was Uncle Zhang of the Earth Realm. For a group like them to go to the White Leaves Forest was clearly seeking death. Even if other cultivators didn't kill them, just the spiritual beasts in the White Leaves Forest would be enough to kill them countless times over. At this time, Huan of Northern Qi also noticed that Lin Muyu was looking at him. He glanced back and his temper seemed to be much more restrained. He didn't have any friction with Lin Muyu. At least, there wasn't a fierce scene of, What are you looking at? I'm looking at you. Or you want to die? Afterward, Huan of Northern Qi's gaze fell on Qin Yin's body. He found that this beautiful young hunter girl had already put on a cloak. Although he couldn't see her face clearly, her beautiful figure was still enchanting. The coarse animal skin armor wrapped around her small waist and brought out her twin peaks. Qin Yin's figure was much better than it had been 4 years ago. Huan of Northern Qi stared in fascination. It wasn't until his wrist touched the back of the horse and sent a sharp pain that he came to his senses. However, he didn't know that the reason he had broken his wrist was because he had thought too much. Xiaoyin, we're going. Lin Muyu looked at the map in her hands. Today's travel is 600 li. After nightfall, we'll reach the White Leaves City outside the White Leaves Forest. Then, we'll enter the legendary Forbidden Land. Let's go. I can endure exhaustion. Okay, let's go. They sped up and left the guest house in the blink of an eye. Chapter 5:14. When it was almost dusk, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin finally left the official road and came to a small town on the south side of the road for a short rest and supplies. There was no more road ahead, and a vast expanse of White Leaves Forest was waiting for them there. White Leaves City was a small town on the eastern border of Red Mountain County. It was also the easternmost city among the 4 provinces of Iha country. White Leaves City was not considered rich, and it was only a small city with less than 100,000 people. The people in this city made a living by mining, fishing, and hunting. To the north of White Leaves Forest was a continuous mountain range called White Mountain. The mountain was silver in color, and it was a natural silver mine. Legend had it that out of 100,000 people in Whiteleaf City, 50,000 were miners, another 30,000 were hunters, and the remaining 20,000 were fishermen. After entering the city, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's attire did not attract much attention. Moreover, this kind of small town at the border would not put anyone on the wanted list, so they did not need to care about the disputes between the empire and Iha country. The largest inn in the city had been booked by the son of a rich mining family in Whiteleaf City for a banquet. So Lin Muyu and Qin Yin could only stay in another inn in Whiteleaf City called 10,000 Miles Inn. As the name suggested, most of the people who came here were people who came from afar to look for treasures. In fact, the eastern part of Whiteleaf's forest was the forbidden area, Whiteleaf's forest. Wild beasts ran rampant in Whiteleaf's forest, and there were also many spiritual beasts. Most of the spiritual stones needed by Iha country's practitioners came from Whiteleaf's forest. After they settled in, they asked the innkeeper to feed the horses. It was already dark, and Lin Muyu still needed to replenish some other things. A sturdy tent. The strong wind in winter was very strong, and a tent that was not sturdy enough could not be used in the wild. In addition, they needed a pot and seasonings. Who knew how long they would stay in Whiteleaf's forest? In addition, they needed to buy some dry food, such as some air-dried steamed buns, to fill their stomachs, because they could not cook with an open fire at any time. At night, the Whiteleaf's forest was bustling with noise and excitement. Red lanterns were hung high up in the sky. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin walked side by side on the street, enjoying the rare peace. Qin Yin gently held onto Lin Muyu's wrist, her beautiful face full of smiles. She was intoxicated by the fragrance of the buns on the street. Not far away was the most famous brothel in Whiteleaf City. A group of gorgeously dressed courtesans were trying to attract customers by the roadside. And a brothel keeper was holding a fan in her hand, shouting to the passing customers, "Hey customer, come in and have a cup of hot wine. The wind is biting cold, and you must be tired from the journey. Our girls here are proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and other arts. Their figures are slim, and their dancing skills are excellent. Come and take a look. Our girls are not only good at dancing, but they are also well-rounded and considerate. If you don't believe me, you can come and touch them to see if they are real or not. Hey handsome, you must be tired from hunting. Come in and have some fun." The brothel keeper's eyes lit up when she saw Lin Muyu. She almost said that this young master was free. However, Qin Yin held onto Lin Muyu's hand tightly. Her beautiful eyes swept across the courtesans, full of wariness, as if she was afraid that these prostitutes would snatch Lin Muyu away. On the side, a few mercenaries carrying battle axes and giant swords entered the brothel with smiles on their faces. One of them, a one-eyed man, chuckled. "It's rare for us to meet a woman, so what if we get drunk for a night? Brothers, let's enjoy ourselves to the fullest tonight. Brothel keeper, get us all the prettiest girls here." "All right, sir. Please wait for a moment, the girls will be here soon." Lin Muyu glanced at the brothel from the corner of her eyes and couldn't help but snort. Shallow. Qin Yin, on the other hand, pouted. You're still talking about it. If it wasn't me but you, Commander Feng, Zhang Wei, Situ-san, and the others had come, wouldn't you guys have gone in to have some fun? Of course not. Am I that kind of person? Lin Muyu said righteously. I've never been to such a place. Xiaoyin, don't think of me as those people. Is that so? Qin Yin squinted her beautiful eyes and smiled. I don't believe that my brother Yu is so upright. You and General Feng have been to such places in the capital. Don't think that I don't know, my eyes are very wide. Ah. Lin Muyu was shocked. I only went to such places to drink. Xiaoyin, don't think too much. Only brother Feng would do something like hugging a courtesan and dancing. Is that so? I'll believe you this time. Looking at Lin Muyu's frightened look, Qin Yin couldn't help but feel funny. She suddenly stopped, opened her arms to hug him, and whispered in Lin Muyu's ear, Big idiot, is Xiaoyin such an open-minded person? Although I don't know the rules of your hometown, in our Qin Empire, it's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, so Xiaoyin can rest assured that you and Xiaoxi will go to Qihai province together. But, you have to remember that Xiaoyin is narrow-minded. I can only tolerate Xiaoxi. I can't tolerate other women. Lin Muyu couldn't help being moved. She reached out and hugged Qin Yin's slender waist. While secretly admiring the feeling, she said, "Don't worry. In my hometown, although there is no longer a practice of having 3 wives and 4 concubines, Shaoyin is so good that I feel that I have everything with you. My heart can't accommodate too many people." "Is that so? Then what about Xiaoxi?" Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were filled with slyness. As for Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu's eyes flickered. "Let's see how she performs." "Humph, you womanizer. How dare you speak so righteously?" Qin Yin laughed and scolded him, waving her fists, wanting to hit him. Lin Muyu hurriedly dodged. A man and a woman chased each other on the streets of Whiteleaf City. Qin Yin's bell-like laughter seemed to affect the mood of the people who were hurrying along, making people feel that this small city at the border was actually in the mood of spring. Achoo! Inside Zetian Palace, Feng Jixing, who was dressed in a white robe, was sitting there with a spiritual brush in his hand. He was carefully rubbing the heavenly book model that Qin Yin had left behind. After a sudden sneeze, he frowned and said, "Who's talking bad about me? It's most likely that bastard Zhang Wei. I only banned him from drinking wine, but he actually dares to talk bad about me behind my back. He's really insolent." Beside the throne, Tang Xiaoxi had already fallen asleep with her head bent over the table. The imperial jade seal in front of her was glowing faintly. In her sleep, Tang Xiaoxi dreamed of spring and flowers blooming. She dreamed that there were actually roasted chickens on the trees. She cheered excitedly as she picked the fruits and ate the chicken wings. As she ate and ate, she suddenly woke up. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and realized that it was just a dream. She couldn't help but feel disappointed and said, "So it's just a dream?" Feng Jixing raised his head and looked at her. Seeing that she was very disappointed, he smiled and said, "Princess Shi, did you dream of you? Why are you so disappointed? You must have dreamed of that brat you." "No, I dreamed of food." Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face blushed. Feng Jixing was silent and actually had nothing to say. "Boss, how much is this wok?" Lin Muyu asked. The chubby boss walked forward, and a sinister smile immediately appeared on his face. "Young master, you have a good eye. This wok is a steel wok made by a skilled craftsman from the western regions. It won't rust no matter how many times you cook it. It's very hard, and it's 2 Jin-in coins for one. If you include the stand, it's 3 Jin-in coins. This is a steel wok." Lin Muyu was shocked. An ordinary iron wok is at most 10 Jin-in coins, but you're selling this steel wok for 2 Jin-in coins? Or are you trying to fool? "Young master, you don't know." The boss said, "This wok conducts heat quickly, and the workmanship is exquisite. This kind of steel was originally used to forge high-class knight swords from the Iha Empire. It won't bend even after 100 times. If you don't believe me, young master, try it. If you can bend the handle of this wok, I'll give it to you for free. If you can't bend it, you must buy this wok." "Is that so?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh in his heart. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. Qin Yin smiled at the side and didn't say anything. She just watched Lin Muyu pretend. Swoosh! An invisible king's fighting flame appeared between the fingers of Lin Muyu's left hand. He lightly grabbed the handle of the steel wok and exerted a little force. The handle immediately bent. "Oh my God!" The boss was dumbfounded. This is impossible. Even the general of the military governor's office can't bend it. You actually..." Lin Muyu quickly bent the handle of the steel wok again. He lifted the wok and took a stand. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your gift, boss. I will always remember your kindness." The boss was speechless. He just watched as this rascal took away the steel wok and the stand. He looked up at the sky and sighed. "You brat, how dare you take away my steel wok? Don't be fooled by the pretty girl behind you. I curse you to be impotent for the rest of your life." On the street, Lin Muyu happily carried the steel wok and suddenly shivered. He couldn't help but say, "I keep feeling like someone is cursing me. I wonder which bastard is it." Qin Yin smiled and said, "You look over there. Someone is setting up a stall." "Is that so?" The two of them quickly went over to watch. They saw 3 to 5 people surrounded by the crowd. These people were all wearing soft armor and holding steel sabers. There was a mercenary emblem on their shoulders. They were mercenaries who didn't have enough money to travel and were selling their skills here. Buzz, buzz, buzz. One of the mercenaries brandished his saber in a mighty manner. True energy was enshrouded in it. Lin Muyu could easily identify his strength. He was at the 3rd level of the Earth realm and was able to defeat an elite. TSK. It was rare to see such an elite in such a small city. Right at this moment, an elegant young master holding an iron fan sneered and said, "Showy but impractical. Useless." This handsome young master had a jade-like face and was very handsome. However, the hostility in his eyes was very strong. His cultivation shouldn't be low. There was milky white air flowing around him. He was an elite with battle armor. He was at least at the 2nd level of the heaven realm. Moreover, Lin Muyu could clearly sense the cultivation of a middle-aged man in plain clothes behind this handsome young master. Although he suppressed the fluctuations of his aura, Lin Muyu could still sense the domain power he released. He was actually a sanctuary. Who were these people? Right at this moment, the middle-aged sanctuary said in a low voice, "Young master, let's go. We're setting off for the White Leaves Forest tomorrow. There's nothing to see with these small tricks. Let's rest early." Okay. The young master turned around and smiled. "Will father's men arrive tomorrow morning?" "Yes. That's good. Let's go back." "Yes." These people didn't notice the hunter siblings, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, because they looked too inconspicuous. Moreover, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had a profound mental cultivation method to hide their auras. "Who is this person? He looks familiar," Qin Yin said. Lin Muyu frowned and clenched her fists. She leaned close to Qin Yin's ear and said in a low voice, "There's only one person who proclaims himself king in the Iha nation, Qin Yi. If I'm not mistaken, this young master should be the son of Qin Yi, one of the 7 marshals, Qin Huan. Otherwise, why would they send a sanctuary to protect him?" Qin Huan. Qin Yin frowned and didn't say anything else. She actually met Qin Yi's son in White Leaf City. Enemies really were bound to meet. Chapter 5:15. After returning to the inn, they each began to cultivate. Lin Muyu sat cross-legged on the bed. After circulating the Vajra protection mantra 7 times, a warm current slowly flowed from his meridians into his qi, causing his entire body to tremble. The warm current rapidly circulated in his qi, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into the shape of a golden Buddha. This was the Arhat's reincarnation. He had finally stepped into the 4th layer of the Vajra protection mantra. Oh! Taking a deep breath, the Vajra protection mantra condensed on every inch of his skin, greatly increasing his defensive capabilities. This was also the strength of the Vajra protection mantra. Without circulating it, he could automatically circulate a small amount of Do Qi to protect his body. This way, even if he was ambushed in a hurry, he could still protect himself. After letting out a long sigh, Lin Muyu lay on the bedding behind him, thinking about Qin Huan and the others he had just met. Besides Qin Huan, there were quite a few people following him. After all, he was one of the 7 marshals of the Iha kingdom, and was also Qin Yi's only son. It was impossible not to send experts to protect him. Just now, if Lin Muyu had made a move, he might have been able to kill Qin Huan, but he and Qin Yin would not have been any better off. They might not have been able to go to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest to compete with the experts of the Iha Kingdom for the Heavenly Tomes. Of course, there was an even more important reason why Lin Muyu did not make a move. Within the Spirit Pulse technique, there was an aura that was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. This aura was extremely well hidden, and sometimes the Spirit Pulse technique could not detect it. However, the power of this aura was extremely pure, and faintly revealed a holy quality. It should be divine power. This made Lin Muyu even more astonished. Could it be that Luolan had come? If that was really the case, then the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest would really be a disaster. But as the saying goes, since you've already come, you still have to go. After a good night's rest, we'll set off tomorrow morning and enter the White Leaves Forest. Early the next morning, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin woke up one after another. They had a rather sound sleep this time. Their mental and physical powers had been nurtured very well, which could be seen from Qin Yin's face that was in high spirits. After a simple breakfast, they set off with some dry rations in their qianquan bag. They rode on 2 war horses and went straight out of the city, heading straight for the White Leaves forest. The winter morning was cold and gloomy. A thick fog filled the forest. From afar, one could hear the sound of hooves and the laughter of mercenaries coming from the other side of the forest. Lin Muyu frowned. It seemed like the news of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest had already spread like wildfire. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many mercenaries that would risk their lives out of desperation. He opened the map scroll and carefully examined it. He couldn't help but secretly complain, saying, "Xiaoyin, the White Leaves Forest is really too big. From north to south, it's over 300 li long, and from east to west, it's almost 1,000 li long. However, we don't know the exact location of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. What should we do?" Qin pursed her red lips. "I don't know either. Perhaps we should wait and travel with someone who knows the news." Travel with someone? Lin Muyu was surprised. "You're saying we should join those mercenaries?" "No, mercenaries are cunning and full of schemes. Working with mercenaries is no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Why don't we first familiarize ourselves with the terrain at the edge of the White Leaves Forest, and first inquire about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest?" "And that's fine." Within the dense fog, 2 war horses slowly advanced through the forest. Very soon, there was no road ahead, and the war horses could only grope their way through the shrubbery. Near noon, the sun dispersed the fog. Lin Muyu and Qin had already entered 50 li into the depths of the White Leaves Forest. On the way, they encountered a few mercenaries, but they were not easy to deal with. The 2 of them deliberately avoided them. Further ahead, a large road appeared in the forest. It was hard to imagine that there would be a large road in this kind of place. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of horse hooves rapidly approached. Without waiting for Lin Muyu and Qin to retreat, a group of nearly 20 soldiers galloped over. They wore the armor of the Iha country, and were the patrolling soldiers of the Swift White Province. The person leading the group was a man wearing the insignia of a centurion. His hand rested on his sword, and he loudly said, "Wait a moment." Lin Muyu stopped her war horse, turned around and said, "Is something the matter, General?" The centurion's gaze swept over Lin Muyu and Qin, and he said, "Could it be that you're both blind? Don't you know that the White Leaves Forest, the forbidden area of the Iha country, is further east?" "We know." Qin urged her horse forward, and respectfully said, "This little girl and my brother are here to hunt for some precious beast bones to use as medicine to treat father's illness. We hope that my lord can let us pass. We really have no choice." "Is that so?" The centurion had the appearance of a wretch. His frivolous gaze swept over Qin's well-developed figure, and he chuckled. "You're a very sensible girl, but ferocious beasts run amok in the White Leaves Forest. Once you pass through this forest, there will be spirit beasts with thousands of years of cultivation. With your skills, you'll only be sending yourselves to death. In my opinion, why don't you follow me back to the camp first?" Qin was startled and she said, "My lord, father is seriously ill, and we're in a hurry to treat him. We really can't afford to delay any longer, so please let us go. This little girl thanks you, my lord." Lin Muyu sneered, and she took out a bag of Jinin coins from her bosom. There were 30 to 40 of them, and she directly threw them over. "Is this enough?" The centurion caught the bag with practiced ease, opened it and took a glance. Immediately his face was filled with joy, and he laughed out loud. This young master is really generous, but his gaze was thick with greed, and he said, "But you insist on entering the depths of the White Leaves Forest. I suspect that you're spies from the Empire. Men, bring these 2 back to the camp, and send the girl directly to my tent." "Yes, my lord." A group of Iha Nation's soldiers urged their horses forward. Naturally, Lin Muyu also knew that she couldn't be merciful. With a clang, she unsheathed her star's sword and directly pressed it against the centurion's chest, leaving him no time to react. Looking at his panicked gaze, Lin Muyu smiled faintly. "I originally wanted to spare your dog life, but unfortunately, you're so lustful and greedy. People like you don't deserve to die, so I can only enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Young hero, spare." Before the centurion could finish his sentence, Lin Muyu's sword had already pierced through his chest. Blood flowed out, and his heavy body fell from his horse dead. "This brat killed my lord. Kill him for me." A group of Iha nation's cavalrymen angrily pulled out their swords. They had always guarded the outer perimeter of the forbidden area, and they had repeatedly exploited the cultivators who passed by. They didn't expect to meet a contemporary powerhouse like Lin Muyu. "Shaoyin, retreat." Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, wanting to test the power of his move. Qinyin quickly urged her horse to move about 100 meters away. She was very obedient. "You're courting death." Lin Muyu suddenly shook his arm, and instantly, the Star Technique's level 5 ice spirit astral power danced around his fist. He raised his fist, spurred on the snow-stride warhorse, and with the chilly astral power, he passed through more than 20 cavalrymen at lightning speed. Whoosh! The air and time seemed to have frozen. Lin Muyu and Takshu passed through like an ice arrow, and the warhorse left traces of frost on the ground. Behind them, there was a hissing sound, and streams of icy air rose, freezing the Iha Nation cavalrymen into ice cubes. In the next moment, the ice cubes all shattered, and not a single drop of blood could be seen. They had all died under the Star Technique's level 5 ice jade snow. "Oh my god!" Qinyan's mouth was wide open. She looked at the bloodless killing scene, but she was very shocked. This was the first time she had seen such a scene, and the killer was Lin Muyu, who was very close to her. "Rustle, rustle." Lin Muyu waved his fist, dispersing the ice spirit astral power around his fist. He looked at the ground full of human and horse corpses, and couldn't help but frown. He said, "This move is actually so powerful." Qinyin pursed her red lips and said, "Big brother you." Lin Muyu looked up at her and said, "Shaoyin also thinks this move is too cruel, right?" Qinyin wanted to say something, but she didn't. It was a tacit agreement, but she couldn't stop Lin Muyu. After all, she knew that this was a chaotic world, and it was either killing or being killed. There was no order or law to speak of. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, readily said, "Actually, I also think this method of killing is too cruel. We should use it less in the future. Don't worry, Shaoyin. I don't want my hands to be stained with blood." "Yes, yes." Qinyin smiled happily. "Then let's leave this place quickly. If someone sees us, I'm afraid we'll be wanted again." "Okay." The two of them quickly left the main road, and went straight into the depths of the White Leaves forest. They didn't go too far when they suddenly heard the sound of hooves behind them. There were other humans coming, and from the looks of it, there were quite a few of them. "Are they chasing us?" Lin Muyu asked. Qinyin shook her head. "Doesn't look like it." This group of people mostly wore soft armor, and some wore heavy armor with winter cloaks draped over them. However, none of them wore the insignia of the Iha nation or mercenaries, so it was presumed that they weren't soldiers. Moreover, there were actually people in the group who wore brocade robes embroidered with gold patterns. Their hairpins were also made of jade. They were completely different from Qinyin, who only had a simple piece of beast bone as her hair ornament. Of course, Lin Muyu's attire was even simpler. He had a head of messy but handsome short hair. This was his standard hairstyle. After coming to the Shattered Cauldron realm for so many years, he still wasn't used to having long hair, so he maintained the habit of cutting his hair short. However, he still looked handsome and free. Just this unruly hairstyle alone had won him many female fans in Lanyan City, although it was useless. "The two of you, please wait." A man in a brocade robe at the very front of the group shouted. Since they couldn't run away, Lin Muyu and Qinyin didn't want to run either. This group of people only seemed to have around 50 people, and it seemed like the strongest among them wasn't that strong. Why would two divine domain experts be afraid of them? Thus, they both reined in their horses and waited for this group of people to approach. After they approached, this young man in a brocade robe, who looked to be around 30 years old, cupped his hands and said, "May I ask the two of you, are you going to search for the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest in the White Leaves Forest?" Chapter 516. Heavenly Tome Forest of Monoliths. Qinyin blinked her large, sparkling eyes that were like black gems. She shook her head and said, "I don't know what kind of place that is." My brother and I came here to hunt a fierce beast called the Hanging Eye Beast, and use its bones as medicine to treat my father's illness. Is there something you need, young master? Lin Wuyu was dumbstruck. Qin Yin's words were as pure as ever, and her starry eyes were filled with sincerity. This girl was practically a natural-born actor. With this kind of acting, if she were to return to Earth, she would become famous without any packaging. Then what would China's film scene have to do with FBB and LBB? The noble youth smiled and cupped his hands. The White Leaves Forest is filled with danger. Since that's the case, why don't we travel together? At least we can look after each other. What does young lady think? Qin Yin squinted her beautiful eyes. But I don't even know you. First time unfamiliar, second time familiar. The noble youth respectfully said. This one is called Lu Yu, the son of the governor of the Swift White Province's Hai Deer County, Lu Zhuang. This time, under the orders of my lord father, we have gathered a group of heroes to come to the White Leaves Forest in search of a treasured land isolated from the rest of the world. The Heavenly Tome Forest of Monoliths. The group of friends behind me are mostly people I brought from Hai Deer County, and there are also some I made on the road. If the two of you don't mind, how about we travel together? Qin Yin looked at Lin Wuyu with an inquiring gaze. Lin Wuyu muttered to herself, then said, Young Master Lu Yu, what kind of place is this Heavenly Tome Forest of Monoliths you speak of? Do you know its specific location? I know the location, but I'm not very sure, Lu Yu said. At this moment, a burly man behind Lu Yu walked forward with a battle axe in his hand. He laughed and said, Young master, there's no need to speak so much with these two hunters. Our group is made up of cultivators. Even if they want to join us, they still have to have the ability. Is that so? Lin Wuyu could not help but smile. If I want to join this group, what kind of test do I have to accept? Just eat 3 of my axes and not die. The burly man laughed. Lin Wuyu wrinkled her eyebrows and said, Fine, I'll take 3 of your axes. Come. Lu Yu hurriedly said, Young master, don't be rash. This Zhang Laoxi's axe is very powerful. It wouldn't be good if there's an accident. It seemed that this Lu Yu was a kind and generous person. Lin Wuyu secretly praised him, but she still took out her stellar sword and jumped off the horse. Holding the sword in front of her, she smiled and said, Zhang Laoxi, come. Let me see how strong your 3 axes are. Hey. A trace of killing intent flashed in Zhang Laoxi's eyes as he said with a smile, You're courting death. If I cleave you in half with my axe, your beautiful sister will be mine. Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. She gracefully stood beside Lin Wuyu and said, If you can really defeat him, I'll be your concubine. If you can't defeat him, you'll have to call me Grandaunt whenever you see me in the future. How about it? Okay. Zhang Laoxi's face was full of fierceness. He raised his battle axe and layers of frost qi surrounded the axe. His body was even plated with layers of qi armor. He was actually a battle saint at the 3rd level of the Earth realm. I really couldn't tell. Lin Wuyu's aura sank, and the image of the Vajra Arhut appeared in her sea of energy. It was the power of the 4th level of the Vajra body protection. She raised her sword with one hand and used the scabbard to block Zhang Laoxi's attack. Bang! With a single strike, a wave of frost swept out, and a few of the cultivators in front were pushed back by the impact. Lin Wuyu, on the other hand, stood there motionlessly, holding her undamaged longsword. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Zhang Laoxi, on the other hand, was pushed back a few steps on the snowy ground. His face was full of suspicion. That brat clearly didn't even use his true qi. So why was there such a strong rebound force coming from his sword? How is this possible? Zhang Laoxi's face was full of doubt. He regained his composure and roared with even more true qi. He rushed forward on the snowy ground and roared, Take this daddy's spiral slash. Die. The battle axe spun a few times and slashed at Lin Wuyu's scabbard. Lin Wuyu secretly laughed. This blockhead wasn't stupid when he was killing people. He even knew to use the spiral force to increase the impact of the battle axe. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong opponent. Just as the battle axe was about to touch the scabbard, Lin Wuyu's wrist turned skillfully. The sword dragged the opponent's battle axe with a strong suction force and spun it in the air. Bang! Zhang Laoxi's battle axe directly hit the ground, causing mud and snow to fly. A strange suction force came from the battle axe, causing him to be unable to stop his momentum at all. He fell to the ground, his forehead hitting the handle of the battle axe, and blood flowed out. Lin Muyu still held the long sword in her hand and stood in the same place. She smiled and said, "How is it? Do you want a third strike?" Zhang Laosi scrambled to his feet and looked at Lin Muyu suspiciously. He couldn't tell how strong this person was, so he shook his head and said, I'm not competing anymore. If you want to join our team, then join us." Heh. Lin Muyu snickered. Lu Yu looked as if he had obtained a treasure. He said, "I didn't expect this young master to have such a secret art. This is great. Welcome to our team. May I know your and your sister's names?" Lin Muyu said, "My name is Lin Yan. My sister is Lin Yin." "Oh, young Master Lin, welcome to our team. Shall we set off to the depths of the White Leaves Forest?" "All right." With the addition of Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, the team seemed to have gained some confidence. Lu Yu was even more polite to Lin Muyu. He said, "I saw young Master Lin Yan's moves just now. You've really reached the perfect state of cultivation. It's admirable." "No, it's just a small trick. If young Master Lin Yan doesn't mind, when we return to Shanglu County, I will recommend you to my father, and let you be the captain of the city patrol. What do you think?" Lu Yu seemed to really want to rope in Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu shook her head. "No, I'm already a guard of the Li residence." "Which Li residence?" "Young Master Li's mansion." Lu Yu was shocked. Could it be the guard of the Li residence in black who defeated Huan of Northern Qi? Lin Muyu was also shocked. The news spread so fast? Lu Yu nodded. Everyone in the Swift White province knows of this rumor. A guard of the Li residence in black defeated Huan of Northern Qi, who had a low-grade earthly scroll. He scared the mercenary leader Lu Zan to death with just his aura. "I didn't expect to meet you here. Young master, didn't you say you're a hunter?" Lin Muyu quickly said. "Yes, my family is poor. I'm a hunter and a guard at the same time." "I see." Lu Yu praised. "Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. Young Master Lin Yan has hidden his abilities well. You're a good example for us to learn from." Qin Yin tried her best to hold back her laughter. She felt that the two of them were shameless. One of them was trying his best to flatter her, while the other was trying his best to talk nonsense. Zhang Laosi, on the other hand, carried his battle axe and angrily urged his horse to follow behind. He muttered to the manservants beside him, "He's just a wild brat who won by trickery. I really don't know why young master thinks so highly of him. When we really meet a spirit beast later, I want to see how this brat's mask will be exposed." The servants all agreed. "Yes, let's see if he's really capable, and yet he's still bragging." Not far ahead, the snow on the ground lessened. Another 10 kilometers, sparse greenery appeared around them. There were leaves on the trees, and fruits appeared in the bushes. Another 10 kilometers, the surroundings were completely in the mood of spring. It didn't look like it was half winter at all. "It's winter, but it's warm and green here. It's really strange." Lu Yu gently placed his palm on the sword at his waist. "Everyone be alert. Be careful." "Yes, young master." Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other. Logically speaking, this was not a valley and there was no terrain to protect them. There should not be such a strange phenomenon happening here at all. There was only one explanation, the power of the heavens and the earth. Yes, Lin Muyu had used the heavenly tome of life, so she could understand why such a strange phenomenon had occurred. The forest of heavenly tome monoliths was definitely in this forest. Moreover, to be able to make a forest of 100 li show signs of life, the might of this heavenly tome of life was just too shocking. Suddenly, Lin Muyu's spiritual sense detected a tyrannical qi. She immediately creased her brow and said, "Xiao Yin, be careful. It seems like something is watching us." Qin Yin obediently nodded and urged her horse closer to Lin Muyu. Lu Yu stared blankly. "What's watching us?" "I don't know either. In any case, it's pretty strong." Just then, a hissing sound came from the nearby underbrush. The grass seemed to have collided with something and slowly tilted and twisted. In the next moment, a huge pitch-black snake suddenly raised its head from the underbrush. It opened its mouth and bit one of the Lu residence's guards off his warhorse. Venomous green fangs spurted out, and the guard fell to the ground, trembling as he lost his life. Careful, it's a venomous snake. Lu Yu hurriedly pulled out his long sword. Zhang Laozi also raised his battle axe and charged over, yelling, "It's a giant viper! Heavens, why isn't a venomous snake hibernating in this kind of weather? Get me a bow and arrow and kill it." The giant viper was a snake-type spirit beast. However, the giant viper in front of them had 3 golden patterns on its forehead. It was a 3,000-year-old spirit beast. After biting 3 guards to death in an aggressive manner, the giant viper was attacked by a group of guards from the Lu residence with bows and arrows. Accompanied by whooshing sounds, the arrows bounced off the giant viper's body, but they could not penetrate it at all. Zhang Laozi's cultivation was the highest. With a roar, he jumped down from his warhorse and smashed his axe into the giant viper's head. Immediately, its scales cracked and blood sprayed out. However, it was only a heavy injury, not a fatal one. The giant viper turned its head and bit Zhang Laozi's thigh. A miserable howl, like that of a pig being slaughtered, came from the forest. Chapter 517. Be***starred. Be***starred. Zhang Laozi was naturally fierce. Under the effects of the poison, he grabbed the giant viper's head and stabbed the tip of his battle axe into the giant viper's eye. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. This blow was enough to kill the giant viper. After killing the 4 guards, it finally collapsed. However, Zhang Laozi was also lying on the ground. The muscles in his legs were beginning to collapse, and his body was trembling. This snake venom was not your average kind of venom. It would take at most 2 minutes to take away his life. Heavens, this is bad. Lu Yu naturally knew that Zhang Laozi was the strongest person in the group. If he died, how would the group find the heavenly tome forest? What do we do? Who knows the art of detoxification? Lu Yu yelled. Zhang Laozi's body was trembling. He was on the verge of death. His eyes were hazy as he said, "Young master, I can't do it anymore. Laozi can't accompany you to find the heavenly tome and restore the Lu clan's prestige. Young master, this subordinate is useless. At this moment Lin Muyu, who was behind Lu Yu, took out a bottle of medicine and said, "Spread this medicine on the wound. Quickly, or else even the gods won't be able to save him." Yes. Lu Yu was extremely anxious. He took the bottle of antidote from Lin Muyu and poured it on Zhang Laozi's leg. In an instant, the snake venom turned into steam and dissipated in the blink of an eye. The antidote was worthy of being a level 10 medicine. After a few more minutes, Zhang Laozi's wound actually became rosy. His physical strength and qi also recovered a little. He looked at his leg in disbelief, then looked at Lin Muyu and said, What kind of medicine is this?" "An antidote made by us hunters." Lin Muyu played it down. Zhang Laozi struggled to stand up and immediately knelt on the ground, saying, "Young master Lin Yan, this lowly one had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Thank you for saving my life." Lin Muyu nodded. "It's fine. Bandage it up and let's continue our journey." "Yes." Zhang Laozi dug out the 3,000-year-old viper's spiritual stone and handed it to Lu Yu before continuing on his journey. Soon Lin Muyu sensed the aura of the giant viper again. This time, there were 3 of them. These giant vipers were nearly 10 meters long and were no different from pythons. Moreover, they were highly toxic and could not be dealt with by ordinary cultivators. Zhang Laozi and the others were also quite surprised. The lethal giant viper was only pretty strong, according to the hunter kid. Just how strong was this hunter kid? Rustle! The grass in front of them shook, and 3 giant vipers appeared in everyone's vision. Immediately, despair and pain appeared on Lu Yu's face. He said, "How could this be? So many giant vipers, what should we do?" Zhang Laozi hurriedly raised his battle axe and said, "Brothers, prepare to fight with me and kill all these poisonous beasts." Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Why don't you let me do it?" Zhang Laozi was stunned. "Young master Lin Yan, why don't we let young master Lin Yan give it a try?" Lu Yu nodded his head. Although it was immoral to say such words, Fourth Zhang and the others would definitely die if they went up against him. Why not let Lin Muyu give it a try and see how capable he was? Qin Yin gritted her teeth and stared at the giant vipers in the distance. One is 4,200 years old. One is 3,720 years old. And the last one is 5,430 years old. Brother, you have to be careful. Don't worry. Lin Muyu pulled out the star's sword with a dang sound. The blade was shining brightly, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary weapon. However, Lu Yu and the others did not care about this. In a life-and-death situation, everyone's attention was focused on the 3 deadly giant vipers. Whoosh! Lin Muyu leaped off her warhorse and dashed towards the giant viper like the wind. These giant vipers had been cultivating for many years, and had long developed spirituality. Sensing the strength of the enemy in front of them, they opened their horrifying jaws when they were still a few meters away from Lin Muyu. The venom in their fangs spurted out in a swoosh swoosh. Whoosh! Battle Qi appeared on the blade of Lin Muyu's sword. Zhang Laosi immediately exclaimed in shock. Oh my god, it's Battle Qi. He's a heavenly realm powerhouse. Just as the giant viper's venom was about to reach her, Lin Muyu suddenly let out a low roar. Layers of battle armor appeared around her and repelled the venom. Zhang Laosi's face was still deathly pale, and he was dumbstruck. Oh my god! He's a heavenly king powerhouse. How is this possible? Gotcha! The star's sword slashed horizontally, and a giant viper's head was quickly cut off. Lin Muyu's body spun, and a fiery red king's battle flame surged out of her left hand, directly burning the 4,200-year-old giant viper to ashes. Zhang Laosi was about to faint. His mouth was dry, and he said in a hoarse voice, "Oh my god! Is that King's battle flame? He's actually a holy king powerhouse." With a hissing sound, the 5,430-year-old giant viper opened its bloody mouth and pounced at Lin Muyu. It was already prepared to fight with its life on the line, but unfortunately, the disparity in strength was too great. Golden light flashed continuously around Lin Muyu, and before anyone could see clearly, the god-binding chains and 7 luminaries' immortal gourd had already disintegrated into the 7 luminaries' immortal sword. The huge golden sword circled around the star's sword, and with a crack, it fell from the sky and directly split the giant viper into 2. This can't be real. Zhang Laosi stood there, dumbfounded. A person can't be this strong. There's no way he can kill a 5,430-year-old spirit beast in one hit. This can't be real. But everything was right in front of them. While Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi, and the others were dumbfounded, Qin Yin, the little sister of a hunter, was not surprised at all. She clapped her hands with a smile on her face and said, "Big brother is so strong." Lin Muyu smiled and quickly took out 3 poisonous spirit stones and put them in her Qiankuan bag. This was a spirit beast that she had killed alone, so there was no need to share the spoils with others. A few minutes later, Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi, and the others finally recovered from their shock. Lu Yu walked forward politely and cupped his fists. "I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Greetings, Lord Holy King." Zhang Laosi and the others also cupped their fists and even knelt down. "Greetings, Lord Holy King." On the mainland, the strong were respected, and this was evident. Lin Muyu frowned. She had no idea how to deal with the situation in front of her. She could only raise her eyebrows and said, "Get up, all of you. There's no need to be so polite, young Master Lu Yu." Lu Yu slowly stood up and said, "Lord, you have the cultivation of a holy king. I wonder which legendary person you are. What holy king realm?" Lin Muyu feigned ignorance and said, "I only killed a few giant vipers. Don't call me Lord Holy King. I'm just a lowly guard of the Li estate." Lu Yu. As if sensing that Lin Muyu was unwilling to reveal her identity, Lu Yu naturally did not say anything more. He only smiled and said, Then shall we continue on our way?" "And all right." Mounting her horse again, they did not travel very far before Lin Muyu could already sense a powerful energy coming from the distance. If there were no accidents, the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest was within 50 li. Thus, Lu Yu and the others had lost their ability to point the way. Moreover, Their cultivations were not suitable for roaming in the White Leaves forest. Not to mention those mysterious cultivators, even a random 5 or 6,000-year-old spirit beast would be enough to wipe out this group of people. Young Master Lu Yu, do you know how to inscribe a heavenly tome? Lin Wuyu asked. I'm currently learning. This lowly one's aptitude is lacking, so I have yet to succeed. Lu Yu said somewhat awkwardly. Thus I gathered many people and asked my father to volunteer, disregarding his opposition to come to the White Leaves forest. Saying this, Lu Yu took a deep breath and said, Several hundred years ago, my ancestor was a marquis. It was an honor, but in our generation, it declined with each passing day. If I, Lu Yu, could bring back a few stone tablets from the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, perhaps I could write a human book, a spiritual book, or even an earthly book, allowing my clan to rise again. Lin Wuyu said, This time, many experts of the continent have found information about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Many people have come to the White Leaves Forest, and many of them are murderers. With your strength, it is impossible for you to survive here. Although my sister and I can protect you for a while, we cannot protect you forever. Thus, I suggest that young Master Lu Yu return as soon as possible, lest you end up dying in a foreign land. His words were merciless, completely disregarding the face of Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi, and the others. In the past, Zhang Laosi would definitely have flown into a rage out of humiliation. But now, Zhang Laosi clearly knew that this young hunter was actually an expert on the level of the Holy King, so he naturally did not say anything more. The words of a true expert were the truth, worthy for the weak to learn. This had always been the principle since ancient times. But who could have imagined that although Lu Yu's cultivation was mediocre, the determination in his eyes could not be shaken? He clenched his fists and said, Young Master Lin Yan, although Lu Yu knows that his aptitude is mediocre, but how can a man not struggle for his fate? If today, Lu Yu is a coward and returns without accomplishing anything, then I can only continue to be mediocre for the rest of my life. I'm not willing. Yes, the struggles of the weak were always looked down upon, but as long as they continued to struggle, there would be a day when the weak would become the strong. Lin Wuyu was somewhat moved. She nodded and said, Fine then, since young Master Lu Yu has already made up your mind, I won't say anything more. But, as long as we find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest and obtain 1 or 2 stone tablets, you should immediately return to Shanglu County. I don't want to see you and your people die here. After all, we know each other. Yes. Lu Yu clasped his hands and said, As long as young Master Lin Yan can help me obtain a stone tablet, you will be the benefactor of our Lu clan. Let's go. Let's not talk about this anymore. We'll talk about it after we find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Yes. The group carefully searched through the forest. A few more giant vipers appeared, but they were all easily killed by Lin Wuyu. Because her movements were too fast and her martial spirit was also too fast, even with the cultivation of Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi, and the others, they still could not tell what Lin Wuyu's martial spirit was. The difference in strength was too great. Just as the group circled around a lush grassland, the sound of hooves came from ahead. A group of people wearing metal armor and the insignia of the Iha kingdom appeared behind the forest. Furthermore, they were familiar people. They were people from northern Huan. Oh no, Zhang Laosi paused and said. Young Master Lin Yan is the person who injured northern Huan. He will definitely be recognized. Lin Wuyu lightly said. No, I masked my face that day. They only know that I am a hunter. Don't make it public. Yes. Chapter 518. Although Huan of Northern Qi had one of his wrists cut off, he was now wearing a set of light golden armor. He even wore the insignia of the Iha kingdom's captaincy on his shoulder. The Northern Qi government was indeed very powerful in the Iha kingdom. They had easily allowed their second son to become captaincy. The corruption of their military system was evident. Lin Wuyu was silent. She urged her horse and brought Qin Yin into the crowd of Zhang Laosi and the others without making a sound. At the same time, she slowly extended the spiritual pulse technique to investigate the strength of this group of people. Other than Huan of Northern Qi, there were also a few Kiliarchs of the Iha kingdom. Their strength was not weak. Among them, there were 3 who had a cultivation of the heaven realm. There were also a few hidden experts in the army who had a cultivation of the heaven realm. Although there were no experts of the divine domain in this group of people, in terms of battle strength, they were not weak. Moreover, just the formation of nearly 500 cavalrymen was already not easy to deal with. It was becoming more and more difficult to see through what Huan of Northern Qi was thinking. Did he want to rely on the army to steal all the heavenly tome monolith inscriptions from the forest? Too childish. Sometimes, numbers did not decide everything. At this time, Huan of Northern Qi had already led a group of soldiers forward. His eyes were filled with arrogance as he looked at Lu Yu and the others. He smiled coldly. Who are you to dare enter the forbidden land of the Iha kingdom? Lu Yu urged his horse forward and bowed respectfully. I am the son of the governor of Shanglu County, Lu Zhuang. My name is Lu Yu. I brought the guards of the manor and lost my way in the White Leaves Forest. That is why I lost my way and entered the forbidden land. People of Shanglu County? Huan of Northern Qi's lips curled up. The son of a governor of a county city? How interesting. Lu Yu, don't you know how to tell the direction according to the sunrise? You dare to use such a lie to brush me off. I think you must be tired of living. I am slow-witted. Young master, please investigate. Really? Huan of Northern Qi's cold gaze swept across the group of people behind Lu Yu one by one like he was looking at goods. Perhaps, in Huan of Northern Qi's eyes, Lu Yu and the others were not real people. They were just a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Suddenly, Huan of Northern Qi's gaze stopped on Lin Muyu and Qinin. It was rare to see beautiful women like Qinin, so he immediately recognized them. He couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. Miss, do you still recognize me? We met once at the post house. It must be fate that brought us together in a place like this. Qinin looked at him indifferently. She did not hide the disgust in her eyes as she said, I don't know you. You don't know him. Huan of Northern Qi refused to give up. He smiled. It doesn't matter. If we get to know each other more, we'll naturally get to know each other. At this moment, a middle-aged commander of deep cultivation walked forward and said in a low voice, Second Master, we shouldn't stay here for too long. Commander Ji and Commander Long's people should have already reached the White Leaves Forest. We need to find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest before they do. I also heard that the commander has also sent people to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. We can't fall behind. As for that hunting girl, in my opinion, Second Master should be a little more patient. Don't let a moment of pleasure ruin the important matters. That's right. Huan of Northern Qi nodded. However, this group of people will still have to come with us. The commander was surprised. Second Master, you mean? Huan of Northern Qi smiled. Lu Yu, your group doesn't have 50 people. That's too few. Once you encounter some powerful spiritual beasts, it will be difficult to protect yourself. I think it would be better for us to join forces. You can come with us to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. That way we can look after each other. What do you think? Lu Yu had no other choice. He could only cup his hands and say, I will listen to Second Master's orders. Huan of Northern Qi smiled. Good. Let's go. Take your people and open the path in front. I'll take my people and bring up the rear. Yes. Lu Yu was in a difficult position. Huan of Northern Qi was clearly using his group as cannon fodder. The spiritual beasts in the depths of the White Leaves Forest were getting stronger and stronger. His 50 people were probably not enough to kill them all. Moreover, Lin Yan, a Holy King expert, had not said a word. It seemed that he was not certain of victory. After all, the other side had 500 people, and there was no lack of experts among them. Lin Muyu slowly urged his horse forward with the group. His face was grave. His thinking was very simple. If he and Qin acted together, they could indeed defeat the 500 Iha soldiers, but they would have to pay the price in blood. They might even be heavily injured. If they were injured before they even reached the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, they would have no strength left to deal with the Holy Domain experts that Qin Huan had brought with him. They were the true opponents. Moreover, Luolan might have also come, but she had not shown herself. They had to act, but they had to wait for an opportunity to kill these 500 people without suffering any losses. At this moment, He truly regretted letting Huan of Northern Qi escape last time. This kind of vengeful villain should have been killed cleanly with a single stroke of the sword. Thus, including Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, the 40 or so people urged their horses forward. Behind them were Huan of Northern Qi and the other Iha soldiers, who were at daggers drawn. This made Lin Muyu and the others feel as if there was a thorn in their backs. The sky gradually darkened. After nightfall, the group lit torches and continued on their way through the night. Huan of Northern Qi decided to find a safe place to set up camp before they could stop and rest. It was not until late at night that a stone valley finally appeared in the White Leaves forest. The valley was surrounded by huge rocks and was relatively safe. It was a good camp. Huan of Northern Qi pointed at the valley with his broken arm, but he found that he had no fingers, so he switched to his other arm. He extended his index finger and pointed into the distance. He said, "Let's set up camp here. The Iha army is camped inside. Lu Yu, lead your people and guard the entrance to the valley. The heavy responsibility of guarding the valley is left to you." "Yes, second master," Lu Yu replied respectfully. In terms of status, Huan of Northern Qi was the second young master of the Northern Qi manor, which was like the sun in the sky. His status was like that of a marquis. Lu Yu, on the other hand, was only the son of a mere governor and the son of a declining family. One could imagine the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how unwilling Lu Yu was, he could only follow orders. Everyone entered the valley. Huan of Northern Qi's people took out the food on the backs of the warhorses and began to cook. Lu Yu's people also began to set up simple tents. Lin Muyu chose a place near the rocks to set up camp and set up the tent she had bought. She then raised a bonfire and used a steel pot to boil water. She then took out a piece of swanee meat from her cosmos bag and cut it up before throwing it into the pot. She added wild vegetables, oil, and salt. Then, she and Qin Yin sat around the bonfire and enjoyed the rare piece. Under the light of the fire, Qin Yin's pretty face appeared even more charming. Lin Muyu couldn't resist looking at her a few more times. She smiled and said, "Regardless of whether it's bringing Xiao Yin or Xiao Shi out, I always feel very lucky." "Why is that?" Qin Yin asked with a smile. "A feast for the eyes," Lin Muyu replied truthfully. Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. "Danger lurks everywhere here. Yet you still have the mood to tease me. Humph. What are you afraid of?" Lin Muyu spread her hands and looked at the light of the bonfires in the valley. "Everything is under control. There won't be any problems." "I also hope so." Not long after, the swanee meat was cooked and emitted a fragrant aroma. Lin Muyu filled a bowl with the meat and gave it to Qin Yin. Then he ate a bowl of meat himself to replenish his strength, and at the same time, he refined the spiritual energy in the swanee meat to improve his cultivation. Fortunately, Tang Xiaoxi had taught him the heart-cleansing mantra, so he would not be affected by the dry heat in the swanee meat. Deep into the night, the bonfire was still flickering, and in the warm tent, Lin Muyu sat with his legs crossed. Strands of Fuxi celestial power flowed around him. He had to cultivate this celestial power to become stronger. This was his secret weapon, allowing him to use the celestial power before stepping into the deity level. This was something no other cultivator could achieve. After Qin Yin finished cultivating, she lay down to rest. She rested her beautiful face on Lin Muyu's lap and breathed lightly. She was as gentle as a kitten. Lin Muyu couldn't sleep. Using the spirit pulse technique, he could sense that there were strands of aura spying on them. They were enemies, not friends. It wasn't until late at night that the aura from the spirit pulse technique finally approached them. Lin Muyu suddenly opened his eyes and shook Qin Yin's shoulder lightly. "Xiaoyin." Qin Yin opened her beautiful eyes and asked, "What's wrong?" "Spiritual beasts are coming to attack us." "Ah." Qin Yin immediately flipped up and grabbed the hilt of the heavenly sword, preparing to fight. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "Don't be nervous. I'll think of a way for these attackers to go around us and directly attack the Northern Qi Huan's army. But what should I do?" "Domain pressure." Lin Muyu's eyes were filled with confidence. "These attacking spiritual beasts should be between 5,000 and 10,000 years old. As long as I spread out the pressure of the Holy King realm and cover the surroundings of our camp, They will naturally go around and directly attack the northern Qi Huan's people. At this time, Lin Muyu had already sat up straight. After a light shout, her body was surrounded by King's fighting flames. An invisible pressure spread out. Under Lin Muyu's mental control, it descended upon Lu Yu's camp. Immediately, the drowsy guards felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave and couldn't move. This pressure was something they couldn't resist. Fortunately, the pressure Lin Muyu released was actually a warning, not an attack. What's wrong? Lu Yu sat there, unable to move. He looked at Zhang Laosi beside him. Zhang Laosi was also dumbfounded. He muttered, "It should be Sir Lin Yan's holy domain pressure. Looks like something is going to happen." Oh, Lu Yu couldn't do anything. He could only watch the situation develop. In the darkness of the night, giant monkeys with golden patterns on their heads and bodies shrouded in flames appeared in the forest. They were as tall as 2 people, and there were 5 to 9 golden patterns on their heads. Each of them let out violent cries and made a lot of noise. As they approached the valley, a tyrannical pressure of the Saint Realm suddenly appeared in front of them, making them even more irritated. Flaming monkeys were a type of spiritual beast of the fire element. They were one of the natural controllers of the laws of fire. Chirp chirp, one by one, the flaming monkeys flew into a rage, but they didn't dare to provoke the holy domain pressure that Lin Muyu released. They could feel how powerful the owner of this power was, but the flaming monkeys weren't willing to give up on this attack. One by one, they scuttled up the mountain rocks. In the blink of an eye, streaks of fire appeared on the rock walls around the valley. A Iha soldier who was dozing opened one eye. After looking, he woke up with a start and shouted, "Oh no, the spiritual beasts are attacking." Chapter 519. What's wrong? Huan of Northern Qi suddenly woke up from his sleep. He crawled out of the tent and looked around. Flame monkeys. A Chiliarch held a steel knife. Zhenqi frost swirled around the blade. He said, "They're all over 5,000 years old. Be careful, second master. Hide in the tent and don't come out." What's there to fear about mere flame monkeys? Huan of Northern Qi lifted his sword and flipped onto his horse. He shouted, "Use your bows and arrows. Kill all the flame monkeys." Yes. Protect the second master. A group of Iha soldiers all raised their shields and stood in front of Northern Qi. The archers pulled back their longbows and shot toward the group of flaming monkeys charging toward them. However, a fiery red aura appeared on the surface of the flaming monkey's skin. With a clang, most of the arrows were deflected. In the next moment, a few flaming monkeys in front had already raised their sharp claws and tore through the shields. They opened their mouths and bit into the necks of the soldiers behind them. Wretched cries immediately rang out. Bastards! A few of the more powerful Chiliarchs trembled with anger. They raised their swords and slashed wildly. Perhaps only these Heaven Realm Chiliarchs could stop the flame monkeys. Chirp chirp, chirp chirp. There were flame monkeys everywhere around the valley. There were at least 100 of them. Even the soldiers led by Huan of Northern Qi, who had high cultivation, could not withstand them. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 500 people had been killed by the flame monkeys. For a moment, Huan of Northern Qi's face grew increasingly pale. Protect the second master. A Heaven Realm elite swung his sword horizontally and forced a fire monkey to retreat. The fire snake martial soul on the blade moved continuously, but 2 fire monkeys attacked from the left and right at the same time. Their sharp claws covered in flames pierced the Heaven Realm elite's abdomen and practically ripped out his intestines. He died a horrible death. General Lu. The surrounding soldiers were dumbfounded. They were scared out of their wits. We can't stop them. A Chiliarch holding a spear shouted. Protect the second master and retreat. Let Lu Yu's people come in and stop the flame monkeys. These flame monkeys are a bunch of lunatics. Yes. The soldiers clustered around Northern Qi Huan as they retreated. The soldiers at the back howled as they were killed in the flames. The number of flame monkeys grew, far exceeding the imagination of Northern Qi Huan and the others. Damn it. Huan of Northern Qi's handsome face was now twisted. He growled. If you want to kill me, then don't blame me for being impolite. I will let you animals have a taste of the power of heaven and earth. As he spoke, Huan of Northern Qi suddenly raised the sword in his hand. Streaks of golden runes on the blade transformed into an earthy yellow light that shot into the sky. This time, the color was very rich. It was a mid-tier Earthbook embryonic sword. A blood-red vortex appeared in the sky, and the power of heaven and earth had already been activated. In the next moment, furious bolts of lightning rained down, and the purple light illuminated the dark night like it was daytime. Bang bang bang. This mid-tier Earthbook was a law of lightning. Bolts of furious lightning crashed into the crowd of flame monkeys. Wretched cries rang out, but the Iha Kingdom soldiers mixed in the crowd of monkeys were also not spared. Each of them was turned into a pile of charcoal, before they could even cry out. The lightning raged on for nearly 10 seconds before stopping. There were already many dead and injured. The flames flickered. The flame monkeys had not all died, but they charged forward even more violently. Outside the valley, Lin Muyu raised her head to look at the bursts of lightning in the sky and said, Northern Qi Huan has used the heavenly book again. What a wastrel. Young Master Lu Yu, let's go quickly. Go. Lu Yu paused. Go where? To find the heavenly book forest. Lin Muyu smiled faintly. Northern Qi Huan's army was ambushed by the flame monkeys. They must have suffered heavy casualties, but the flame monkeys may not be able to kill all of his people. Once Northern Qi Huan leads the rest of his people out, he will definitely take his anger out on you. At that time, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Okay, let's set off immediately. Pack up and leave this place. Lu Yu said loudly. Lin Muyu shook her head. Don't pack up. There's no time. Everyone, get on your horses and leave. Leave behind the tents and everything else. Your lives are more important. Yes. The sound of hooves echoed in the air as the group quickly left the ominous place. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, turned around to look at her tent and the steel pot. She felt it was a pity that she had to throw away the things she had just bought. Qin Yin seemed to see through his thoughts. She couldn't help but smile. Okay, after this, we'll just sleep outdoors in the heavenly book forest. In any case, the temperature here isn't very cold. Let's go. The group hurriedly left, disappearing into the night. A few minutes later, a group of people led by Northern Qi Huan charged out of the valley. Almost all of them were injured. Northern Qi Huan's face was full of malevolence. Looking at the empty camp, he couldn't help but roar angrily. Where are they? Where are they? Lu Yu, you treacherous villain, don't let me see you again. No, when I return to Hundred Ridge City, I will definitely go to the commander and ask for an imperial edict to exterminate your entire Lu household of Shanglu County. Just you wait. On the side, the injured Kiliarchs were dumbfounded. They knew that this vicious and evil second young master was just a weakling who couldn't be helped. However, they were soldiers after all, and they had to obey orders. Gigi. The cries of the flaming monkeys came from the valley. Northern Qi Huan couldn't help but shiver. He said, let's go to the heavenly book forest. We can't stay here any longer. Second young master. A Chiliarch wiped the blood from his face. We still have at least 100 brothers left in the valley to bring up the rear. Are we going to ignore them? We can't. The bigger picture is more important. If we can find those ancient heavenly book monoliths, their sacrifice will be worth it. Yes. The Chiliarch wanted to say something but stopped. He urged his horse to follow Northern Qi Huan. After galloping for several dozen meters, he said, Second young master just activated the mid-level earthly tomes. Other than killing a dozen flaming monkeys, he also killed nearly 50 of our brothers. Shut up. Northern Qi Huan's face was filled with anger. Those who accomplish great things do not bother with trifles. If I hadn't activated the earthly tomes, I'm afraid it would have been very difficult for our group to escape. The families of those warriors who died in battle will naturally be compensated by the Iha Kingdom's treasury. You don't need to worry about that. Yes, second young master. A trace of helplessness appeared on the Kiliarch's face. As dawn approached, the east gradually began to brighten. The visibility in the White Leaves forest also increased. Amidst the messy sound of horse hooves, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin Lu Yu, and the others madly galloped for several dozen li. The surrounding scenery also became increasingly lush, like a scene of hundreds of flowers blooming. Along the way, they encountered a few flaming monkeys, but they were all scared away by Lin Muyu's pressure of domain, saving them from unnecessary trouble. Further ahead was a hilly area. In the distance, they could even see that other than the lush forest on the hills, there were also scattered stone monoliths that glowed with a faint light. Is that the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest? Northern Qi Huan asked excitedly. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. It should be. Those stone monoliths have a small amount of spiritual energy, but it's not safe here. There's a very powerful Qi up ahead. It seems to be guarding these stone monoliths. What is it? Lu Yu's entire body trembled. He knew that since Lin Muyu said it was very powerful, it was definitely much more powerful than the giant viper. I don't know. Lin Muyu shook her head. Lu Yu narrowed his eyes and said, Someone scout the path. We'll go to that hill and obtain the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions. This trip will not have been in vain. Yes. Everyone was somewhat excited. After experiencing life and death, they had come to the extreme depths of the White Leaves Forest for the sake of these stone monoliths. If they could find the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions, they would be able to account for themselves when they returned. The dozen or so guards wielded their swords and spears and spread out on their horses, moving forward one step at a time. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stood on either side of Lu Yu. They could not let this young master of Shanglu County die. Otherwise, this group of people would be like a group of dragons without a leader. Sooner or later, they would all die in this dense forest. At this moment, the earth suddenly began to tremble. Buzz buzz, strands of energy also traveled into their ears. Lin Muyu could not help but frown and say, Everyone be careful. Something is coming. Everyone in front, retreat. But before the scouting guards could completely retreat, suddenly, a wild beast's roar came from the forest. They saw a huge beast charge through a few giant trees. The beast's entire body was covered in blood-red fur. Like a ball of flame, it swept over, and 3 guards did not even have time to scream before they were cut in half. My heavens, what is that? Qin Yin was dumbfounded. She suddenly pulled out the heaven-suppressing sword, and the Saint Beast's soul matrix circled around the blade. At the same time, the holy power of the god-binding chains encircled the blade. Starlight constantly flew up, causing the beast's skin cloak behind her to flutter. Roar roar. The huge beast roared and opened its bloody mouth to chew on a corpse. It chewed on the corpse that had just died. And its teeth were full of minced meat. A pair of emotionless eyes occasionally looked up at Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and the others in the distance. It was eating people. Moreover, there were a total of 10 golden lines on its head, which was a little scary. Behemoth, it's a behemoth. Zhang Laoxi's face was a little twisted. I have seen this kind of spirit beast in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. This is a legendary spirit beast that originally existed in the legends. I did not expect it to really exist. Lu Yu was also shocked, but the shock he received was twofold. First, the appearance of the behemoth made him feel despair. Second, the treasure sword in Qin Yin's hand was obviously not an ordinary sword. Moreover, this beautiful girl's golden martial soul was clearly the same as the god-binding chains recorded in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. This girl's identity was already obvious. She was the Empress Qin Yin. Lu Yu only felt that the world was spinning, and he could not accept everything in front of him. If this girl was Qin Yin, then the identity of the young man beside her was even more obvious. Other than the #1 enemy of the Iha nation, Lin Muyu, who else could have such strength? Chapter 520. In the blink of an eye, this 5-meter-tall beast had already eaten half of a corpse. As if it had eaten its fill, it wiped its bloody mouth and raised its head to look at Qin Yin and the others. Although the behemoth looked like a wild beast, it seemed to be far more intelligent than spiritual beasts of the same level. Its pair of dark eyes flickered with cunning. Ho! It stood up and retreated several steps, confronting Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. However, it did not attack, only roaring angrily. What is it doing? Lu Yu asked in shock. Qin Yin indifferently said, It's probably calling for companions. There should be other behemoths here. Clang. Lin Muyu quickly pulled out the stellar sword and said, "Then let's finish this battle quickly. Don't give it the chance to call for companions." "It's too late." Qin Yin pointed into the distance. Trees were constantly being knocked down in the forest, accompanied by a faint roar. Another behemoth appeared, and it was a 13,000-year-old behemoth. It was much stronger than the 10,000-year-old behemoth in front of them. Qin Yin didn't want to kill it. "It's over, it's over." The behemoth's angry roars contained the pressure of a sacred beast. It immediately caused Zhang Laosi to dismount from his horse and kneel on the ground. His entire body trembled as he said, "Two 10,000-year sacred beasts, we're dead. It's these 10,000-year sacred beasts that are guarding the heavenly tome monolith forest. This really is an ominous place. It's over, it's all over." If Zhang Laosi was like this, most of the other guards also lost their will to fight. One by one, they dismounted from their horses and stood there with their weapons hanging down. They did not even have the courage to raise their heads to look at the behemoth. "Humph, these weak chickens." Lin Muyu could not help but snicker to herself. In a clear voice she said, "Xiaoyin, you deal with this 10,000-year-old behemoth. Leave the 13,000-year one to me. Let's see who gets rid of it first." "All right." Qin Yin readily agreed. Lin Muyu understood Qin Yin's strength all too well. She had the purest Qin bloodline flowing in her veins, and the power of the true dragon god binding chains was not inferior to her own star god binding chains in the slightest. In addition, after cultivating the dragon-slaying art, her strength had become even more tyrannical. A 10,000-year-old saint beast was completely no match for this empire empress. Qin Yin's slender legs slightly parted as she stepped onto the grass. Both her hands gripped the hilt of her sword. And with a light shout, the god-binding chains began to revolve around her body and the blade of her sword. She took the initiative to attack first. The blade of the sword suddenly shook, and with a ding, it actually transformed into a sound wave that rushed towards the 10,000-year-old behemoth. With a whong, it swept past, and the weeds on the ground were all pulverized. Meanwhile, the behemoth let out a miserable howl as a small piece of the spiritual energy astral chi on the surface of its body was already shattered. In the forest of heavenly tome monoliths, it had probably rarely met a worthy opponent, so how could it endure such humiliation? With a furious roar, it charged straight at Qin Yin, but it also played right into Qin Yin's hands. A god-binding chain burst out from the ground. Bang! The lower part of the behemoth's body was struck by the golden energy, and with a miserable howl, it fell to the ground. Qin Yin's cold sword was coming straight at it. On the other side, Lin Muyu flew out, charging straight at the other behemoth. The stars on the surface of her body revolved, and the blade of her sword began to emit rays of light from the starlight god-binding chains. She faced it head-on with the first appearance of starlight, asking for directions first. Roar, roar. This 13,000-year-old behemoth was clearly not that simple. Its two sharp claws were filled with astral winds, and it smashed towards Lin Muyu's longsword. With a pung, a heavy rebounding force came from the sword, causing Lin Muyu to be secretly shocked. A 13,000-year-old spiritual beast was indeed very strong. In terms of strength, it was already completely not beneath her. The behemoth's speed was faster than Lin Muyu's imagination. With an angry roar, it leaped up like lightning and spread out its claws, looking like it was going to tear the tiny human Lin Muyu into pieces in one fell swoop. However, Lin Muyu's speed was even faster, and her strength was also more dexterous. She raised her left palm lightly, and a ribbon of starlight slowly spread out. The power of the starlight chain lingered around it, and she used the falling star steps to flash past the behemoth's armpit. At the same time, the thick power of the starlight chain locked onto the behemoth's waist. Pung, pung, pung. The power of the stars on the starlight ribbon continued to explode, and suddenly, the astral energy on the surface of the behemoth's body was continuously blown to pieces. Blood gradually appeared on the hard skin of the behemoth. It was completely unable to block Lin Muyu's current attack power. Thinking about it, Lin Muyu's strength had already reached the advanced stage of the divine trace realm. In addition to the support of the twin martial souls, star arts, 7 luminaries profound energy, and other peak martial arts, His current strength was roughly equivalent to a 18,000 to 20,000-year-old holy beast. Therefore, he was naturally in an invincible position against this 13,000-year-old behemoth. Roar, roar, roar. With its whole body full of pain, the behemoth felt even more ashamed. It turned around and opened its mouth wide to spit out a ball of raging flames. However, there was no one in front of it. Instead, there was a sharp collision of energy coming from above. When the behemoth raised its head, it saw Lin Muyu's sword with both hands falling down. 5 mountains descend from the heavens. Bang! The star sword was so sharp that it forcibly cut into the behemoth's face. With a crack sound, one of its left fangs was cut off. Blood splattered everywhere, and it was extremely embarrassing. Roar, roar! The behemoth roared angrily and wanted to fight back. However, when it lowered its head, it saw Lin Muyu quietly standing in front of its belly, with mysterious icy spirit star power lingering around his left fist. In an instant, the behemoth was filled with endless fear. This tiny human in front of it was actually so terrifying. He had been smiling since the beginning of the battle, and that was a calm smile. In other words, he did not take this holy beast seriously at all. At this moment, what the behemoth thought of was not anger after being humiliated, but fear. An inexplicable fear. This human strength was enough to destroy it. At this moment, it had no choice but to believe it. Buzz! The ice spirit star power was fully charged in a second. Lin Muyu leaped into the air and punched the demon beast's abdomen. It was the 5th form of the star arts, icy jade snow. Bang! The heavy punch landed on the behemoth's belly. Immediately, a dense chill spread in all directions. Endless frost turned the lush green grassland into a harsh winter. But Lin Muyu's control of power was getting better every day. The icy jade snow only froze everything within a 10-meter radius. It did not hurt Qin Yin, Lu Yu, and the others who were far away. The behemoth's roar had already stopped, and its huge body slowly turned into a huge ice brick. Lin Muyu landed lightly on the ground. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and she looked extremely ethereal. She held her sword upside down and lightly touched the behemoth's thigh with the hilt. Immediately, the huge ice sculpture quickly scattered into pieces. Just like that, a 13,000-year-old holy beast was slaughtered by Lin Muyu with just 3 moves of the star arts without being able to fight back. Looking back at Qin Yin, she slowly pulled out the heaven-suppressing sword from the throat of the other behemoth. The true dragon god binding chains circled around her, extremely dazzling. She and Lin Muyu had actually finished off their opponents together. For a moment, Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi, and the others wanted to die. They all knew how powerful the behemoth was, but they could never have imagined that this young man and woman could so easily finish off 2 behemoths that were over 10,000 years old. Lu Yu looked at Qin Yin with even more respect. He could more or less confirm Qin Yin's identity. She had changed her name to Lin Yin, and Lin Muyu had changed her name to Lin Yan. Both of them had the god-binding chain's martial soul. Was this not enough to explain everything? Lin Muyu grabbed the 2 behemoth spirit stones and threw them into her universe pouch. She then raised her eyebrows and said, "The 2 behemoths guarding the heavenly tome monolith have already been taken care of. Lu Yu, quickly take your people to retrieve the monolith. If you're late, it will be too late." "Yes, young master." Lu Yu recovered from his shock and urged his horse. "Brothers, follow me to retrieve the monolith inscriptions." The group of guards was especially excited as well. They followed Lu Yu and charged towards the small hill. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and smiled. They had to be good people to the end, so they leaped onto their horses and followed. They had to protect this group of people, so that they wouldn't be killed by something at the last step. The hill was overflowing with spring, and the small hill was littered with stone tablets. The inscriptions on the tablets were actually densely packed divine characters, oracle bone script. There were about 10 such stone tablets on the entire hill. Lin Muyu walked forward, and her gaze rested on the stone tablet in front of her. She began to read the inscriptions word by word. Frost. Monsters and demons run amok in the bitterly cold purgatory. The boundless chill devours all good conscience. Souls wail, heaven and earth weep. The endless cycle of reincarnation is about to be broken. The gates of purgatory open, and the chill of death freezes everything in the mortal world. Icy snowflakes dance on the ground. A biting cold winter. Just as he finished reading the inscriptions, his spiritual sense seemed to be attracted to the stone tablet. In the blink of an eye, the divine characters were imprinted in his mind. With a clang, it was as if some kind of restriction had been opened, and the stone tablet in front of him quickly crumbled into a pile of stone powder. The spiritual force contained in the stone tablet also dissipated rapidly. "What's going on?" Qinin asked with her mouth agape. Lin Muyu took a few steps back. Her face was slightly pale, and she felt a little tired. She said, "I seem to have mastered the inscriptions in this heavenly tome. All the words are imprinted in my mind. It's actually so magical." Qinin could not help but smile. "I want to learn too. You just need to carefully read one of the stone tablets. When you understand all the divine characters, you should be able to master it." At the side, Lu Yu hurriedly said, "Young Master Lin Yan, Miss Lin Yin, don't go and read the divine text. Once you read it, only one person can grasp it. The power of heaven and earth will circulate, and only you alone can write this divine text to activate the power of heaven and earth." Ah! Lin Muyu was aghast. "There's such a thing?" "That's right. These heavenly tome inscriptions all have restrictions placed on them." Lu Yu seemed to know a lot. Lin Muyu's brow furrowed. "How do you know?" Lu Yu was somewhat helpless. "My ancestor was once a noble, so he collected an ancient book that vaguely recorded some matters regarding the heavenly tome forest of monoliths. This heavenly tome forest of monoliths was carved by God Emperor Fuxi and 100 disciples in the White Leaves Forest. Every single stone tablet has been imbued with a divine power restriction. It's fine to copy and study, but if one reads it, the divine power will give the exclusive right to use the divine characters to the predestined person." As he spoke, Lu Yu looked at the nearby stone tablets and said, "Unfortunately, the stone tablets here only record the inscriptions of spiritual books." "Spiritual book level?" Chapter 521. Lu Yu explained, "Look, every stone tablet on this hill has a spirit character carved at the very bottom. This also means that the power contained in the tablet inscriptions can at most create a supreme spiritual tome. It is impossible to create an earthly tome. This is determined by the laws of the world." "What a pity, what a pity." Lu Yu gazed into the depths of the heavenly tome forest. "This is as far as I can go. If I go any deeper, I'm afraid there will be even more ferocious guardian spiritual beasts or cultivators. In the depths of the heavenly tome forest, there are definitely more heavenly tomes or even divine tomes." Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat. She could not help but be secretly happy. If there really were heavenly tomes or divine tomes, that would be great. In the current empire, no one could write a heavenly tome. Would she be the first? On the side, Zhang Laosi was directing the guards to move the heavy stone tablets. His face was full of smiles. "Young master, perhaps we can beg young master Lin Yan and Lady Lin Yin to bring us into the depths of the heavenly tome forest. That way, we can obtain the earthly level heavenly tome monolith inscriptions." "No," Lu Yu slowly shook his head. "Heavenly tomes are treasures that can only be found by luck. To be able to come this far has already been a burden to young master and lady. If we go any deeper, we will definitely be a burden to the two nobles. So, we can only go this far. Move the 3 stone tablets and immediately return to Shanglu County." "Yes." Lin Muyu looked at Lu Yu with praise. This Lu Yu was truly different from those hedonistic sons. He was sensible and knew when to advance and retreat. This kind of character was very rare. At this time, Qinin called out from the distant stone tablet, "Brother Yu, come and teach me. There are a few words that I don't recognize." "Damn." Lin Muyu walked over helplessly. She did not look at the full text of the inscriptions, only at the few words that Qinin had said. Her finger pressed on an oracle bone inscription. Her delicate brows furrowed. "Brother, look, this divine character that looks like a cat. What is it? I don't recognize it." "What do you mean it looks like a cat?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. She walked forward to take a look and said, "This is the word cauldron. The word cauldron of the shattered cauldron realm. Oh, what about this? Cow, look at how much it looks like a cow's head. Buffed, it's not that it looks like a cow. It's just that this divine text is an ancient hieroglyph. In any case, it's a cow. Oh, Xiaoyin knows. As she spoke, Qin suddenly froze. It was as if her entire body had been summoned. A faint orange light from the stone tablet seeped into her forehead. That was the effect of divine power entering her beer. In the blink of an eye, the stone tablet also shattered. Presumably, Qin had also learned a divine character. However, Lin Muyu really wasn't sure what was so mystical about it. Did it mean that learning this divine character would greatly increase the chances of completing the book? If that was the case, then she would have to study a bit more in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. However, Lin Muyu could already clearly feel that after breaking the seal on the monolith, the strength of her spiritual soul would be consumed by quite a bit. Thus, learning the Heavenly Tome Monolith inscriptions was not that simple. It was impossible to study endlessly. If one's spiritual soul was full, learning 10 spiritual tomes would be enough to exhaust it. If it was an earthly tome or a heavenly tome, then it would probably consume even more spiritual soul energy. As expected, after learning this divine character, Qin revealed a trace of exhaustion. She retreated several steps and leaned against Lin Muyu's chest. Holding her forehead, she smiled and said, What's wrong with me? She did not cultivate the spirit vein technique, so the strength of her spiritual soul was naturally far from comparable to Lin Muyu's. It's nothing. You'll be fine after resting for a while, Lin Muyu said gently. At this moment, Lu Yu had already instructed the guards to pull up the third Heavenly Tome monolith inscription. He wanted to take away 3 monolith inscriptions. Moreover, he did not dare to copy them, afraid that there would be some inaccuracies. Moreover, many of the monoliths on the hill had already been eroded by the passage of millions of years. Only half of the inscriptions remained. It was not easy for him to find 3. Around noon, the 3 monoliths were finally tied to the backs of the more robust warhorses. Everyone descended the hill, and Lu Yu naturally prepared to bid farewell to Lin Muyu. Young Master Lin Yan, are you going to continue deeper into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest? Yes, I want to see what the Heavenly Tome and Divine Tome are like. Then, I wish you good luck. Lu Yu clasped his hands and said respectfully, On this journey, it is all thanks to young Master and Lady Lin Yan's care. Otherwise, Lu Yu would have long since died at the hands of spiritual beasts and evil men. You're welcome. I saw injustice on the road and drew my sword to help. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. But just at this moment, the sound of hooves came from the distance. There was also someone yelling, They're over there. Kill them and capture them. Don't let that despicable Lu Yu escape. It was the voice of Northern Qi's Huan. He's really haunting us. Qin frowned slightly. That's right. Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed her longsword and said, Since we've already entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, there's no need to be polite. Young Master Lu Yu, I will help you resolve your final worries. Lu Yu was stunned. Young Master Lin Yanyu. Lin Muyu smiled slightly, her eyes filled with killing intent. Some people just wanted to die. If they did not fulfill their wishes, they would not be righteous. Buddha does not help others, I will help myself. Amidst the sound of hooves, Huan of Northern Qi arrived with dozens of cavalry. All of them seemed to be injured. It looked like they had encountered some spiritual beasts on the way. Huan of Northern Qi's face was filled with a twisted light. He extended a finger and angrily said, Lu Yu, you despicable person. You abandoned me and ran off by yourself. Little bastard, today, I will not let you leave the White Leaves Forest alive. As he spoke, Huan of Northern Qi's gaze suddenly fell on the monolith on the back of the horse beside Lu Yu. His entire body trembled as he said, Good, so you've already found the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions. Lu Yu was a good person, and still did not want to offend Huan of Northern Qi. He clasped his hands and said, Second young master, I am a coward by nature, so I left first. I hope that second young master does not take offense. Lu Yu did not mean any disrespect. Nonsense. Huan of Northern Qi's eyes were filled with greed. Someone go, chop off Lu Yu's head and take away their monolith. Also, he then looked at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin and said, I want that woman. I want her alive. No one is allowed to hurt her. I want to bring her back to Bailing City and make her my Northern Qi Huan's woman. Qin Yin couldn't help but laugh in anger. Huan of Northern Qi, who do you think you are to be so arrogant? What did you say? Huan of Northern Qi had clearly not expected this young girl from a hunter family to say such things. However, the aura that seeped out of Qin Yin's body was not something a young girl from a hunter family could have. It was the aura and dignity of a ruler. Clang. The heavenly tome sword left its sheath. Qin Yin had already decided to personally take care of this scum. Oh no, that is... A chiliarch behind Huan of Northern Qi hurriedly rubbed his eyes and carefully looked at the outline of the heavenly tome sword. Could this sword be the national treasure of the empire? The Empress's sword, the heavenly tome sword? Qin Yin smiled faintly. You have good eyes. However, you will all die. As she spoke, Qin Yin had already flown out. She could imagine how many innocent girls had been trampled upon by scum like Huan of Northern Qi. As the former ruler of the continent, she had the authority to sentence Huan of Northern Qi to death. You don't. Huan of Northern Qi had just raised his longsword, and had not had time to gather Jinqi when the heavenly tome sword pressed against his chest. Before the blade had even entered his body, a golden dragon-shaped energy had already pierced his heart. Plop! Huan of Northern Qi's chest was instantly pierced through. Without a drop of blood, Qin Yin gracefully somersaulted back to Lin Muyu's side. This time Lin Muyu did not show mercy. The heavenly tome forest was filled with power. Qin Huan's people had come, and perhaps Luolan had also come. Letting this group of people go would only create unnecessary trouble for herself. Her left hand quietly and gently opened behind her. Strands of thick icy spirit star power surged. In the next moment Lin Muyu leaped up. Like a bolt of lightning, she flew through the crowd of Northern Qi's army. After a few zigzags, she left behind streaks of frost on the ground. The power of the fifth move of the stellar formula, icy jade snow, slowly began to spread. When Lin Muyu flipped onto her horse, the dozens of people behind her all turned into fragments of ice and fell to the ground. They had died a horrible death. Shoo! Lu Yu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. His heart was in turmoil. Was this young General Lin Muyu of the four heroes of Lanyan, Wind, Rain, Thunder, and Lightning? The famous general who dared to challenge the venerable Luo Lan. The famous general who tore apart Qianfeng's dreams of dominating the continent with a single move on the wildfire plains? There was a saying that a general's success was built on the bones of 10,000 people. Lin Muyu had acted too quickly and decisively. On this day, Lu Yu experienced for the first time what it meant to be swift and decisive. It was the first time he saw a true method of killing. Lin Muyu held the reins and said, Xiao Yin, shall we continue? Qin Yin nodded and smiled warmly. Yes. Young master, please wait a moment. Lu Yu suddenly called out. When Lin Muyu and Qin Yin both turned to look, Lu Yu dismounted from his horse and knelt on the ground. He cupped his hands and said in a slightly trembling voice, Lu Yu of Shanglu County has an audience with the Empress and Commander Yu. I, Lu Yu, will always be waiting in Shanglu County, waiting for the Empire's army to recover Lingnan. I, Lu Yu, swear that I will never be an enemy of the Qin Empire. If I break this oath, I will be killed by both humans and gods. Qin Yin smiled and raised her hand. Young Master Lu, you need not stand on ceremony. Get up. I hope you can walk out of the White Leaves Forest safely. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. Then shall we go? Yes, go. Be careful. Yes. Although their identities had been exposed, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin felt even more at ease. There would definitely be many people like Lu Yu. The Empire's army would re-enter the Lingnan region and reclaim their lost territories. This day would not be too far away. Lin Muyu knew that everything he was doing now was for that moment. He was doing it for a hearty battle of revenge. He wanted to kill Luolan, Qin Yi, and Long Qianlin. He wanted to avenge his dead friends and family. Chapter 522. In the end, after Lu Yu and the others left, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin wandered around the edge of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest and lost their way a few times. The entire forest was like a massive profound array. They were clearly walking in one direction, but after a while, they would return to their starting point, which made them vexed. Be careful. After nightfall, Qin Yin suddenly pulled on Lin Muyu's arm. They could feel the earth shaking in front of them. A 5-meter-tall behemoth slowly walked over. It seemed to be the guardians of the heavenly tome monolith forest's edge, which proved that the two of them had not yet truly entered the forest. Just what's going on? Lin Muyu furrowed her brow. It seems like we can't get out of here anymore. We've been wandering around this place since the afternoon. Qin Yin looked at the last sliver of the setting sun on the horizon and said, Big brother, you don't worry. I can feel a massive light screen array under our feet. Perhaps it's just an illusion brought about by the sunlight. When night falls, we can try again. Amen. Qin Yin specialized in the law of light, so she was naturally much more sensitive to the energy of light than Lin Muyu. As a result, she could clearly see through the light array, but Lin Muyu could not. The two of them herded the warhorses to the side and started a fire to cook. Since they had lost the steel pot, they could only cook by barbecuing. Fortunately, there was still some oil and salt in the cosmos sack. Not long after, the swanny meat skewered on the stellar swords began to sizzle. Not long after, a fragrant aroma filled the air, stirring their appetite. Lin Muyu gave some of the meat to Qin Yin, and the two of them ate with the water from their waterskins. After finishing off the 3 pieces of meat, they suddenly heard a jie-jie sound from above. He hurriedly raised his head to look, and as far as his eyes could see, he saw a black shadow circling in the air. It seemed to be an eagle. Frowning, Lin Muyu indifferently said, Perhaps we've already been targeted. Qin Yin was startled. Perhaps it's a wild eagle? Not necessarily. Lin Muyu whistled, and immediately, the treading snow warhorse rushed out of the forest upon hearing the whistle. It stood by its master's side and snorted, as if it had not eaten its fill. Lin Muyu gently stroked the warhorse's head and said, Xiao Yin, shall we try to enter the heavenly tome monolith forest again? After who knew how many times, the two of them urged their horses towards the depths of the heavenly tome monolith forest. Not long after, under the illumination of the moonlight, a small valley path appeared in front of them. Immediately, Qin Yin was somewhat astonished. She said, The last time we came here, there was no valley here. As expected, this profound formation only activates when the sun shines. At night, it reveals its true topography. Lin Muyu inwardly sighed with sorrow. It was no wonder that no one had entered the heavenly tome monolith forest for over 10,000 years. The spiritual beasts here were extremely strong, and the majority of humans would choose to enter the danger zone during the day. If they came during the day, without the illumination of the moon, they would probably not even be able to find the true entrance to the heavenly tome monolith forest. After entering the valley, under the moonlight, stone steels appeared sporadically in the fields, suffused with the faint radiance of the stars. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at them one by one, and discovered that the heavenly tome monolith inscriptions here still had the word spirit inscribed on it. The stone steels here were still only spiritual books. Suddenly, Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique detected strands of qi behind them. After a shudder, she said in a low voice, Xiao Yin, there are people coming. Dismount and lead the horse to hide for a moment. There are quite a few people coming. Oh. Qin Yin dismounted and, together with Lin Muyu, led the horse to the soft grassland and hid in the nearby thicket. Fortunately, there were no overly strong spiritual beasts here, or else their hiding place would definitely be exposed. Qin Yin and Lin Muyu had both cultivated the beast taming technique, so they could naturally order the warhorses to not make any noise. As a result, the two warhorses obediently went to eat the grass, while the two masters hid in the thicket. The sounds of crickets could be heard, and the moonlit night in the heavenly tome monolith forest was unexpectedly unspeakably serene. On the small path in the valley, the intermittent sound of horse hooves could be heard. A large group of people appeared in the heavenly tome monolith forest. From a distance, a young man dressed in golden armor was surrounded by a large group of people, his hand pressed against a broadsword. It was Qin Huan, the son of Qin Yi, the ruler of the Iha country, and one of the 7 marshals of the Iha country. At this moment, Qin Huan's face was filled with excitement. His gaze fell on the stone tablets around him, and he said with a smile, "The Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. It really is the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. There are so many Heavenly Tome Monolith models." To the side, a middle-aged sacred domain expert wearing a purple robe smiled and said, "Your Highness, this time, our trip has not been in vain. However, as far as I know, this is still only the outskirts of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. The stone inscriptions here were all left behind by a few disciples of God Emperor Fuxi. They are all human books and spiritual books, and cannot be considered precious treasures. If we go any deeper, we will probably be able to see earthly tomes, heavenly tomes, and even divine tomes." "Yes." Qin Huan excitedly nodded his head. "Commander Yi, tell the people behind us to follow closely. Don't encounter any more behemoth beasts. Otherwise, I'm afraid that many people will die. We can't afford any more losses." "Yes." The middle-aged man called Commander Yi clasped his hands. "Yes, your subordinate will immediately do as you say." He let out a soft whistle, and immediately, the air responded with the cry of a falcon. As expected, the falcon was raised by this Commander Yi. Looking at the falcon circling in the air, he lowered his head and said, "Your Highness, the godly hunter told me that 2 people entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, dressed as hunters. I don't know where they are now. What should we do?" "2 hunters?" Qin Huan furrowed his brow. "Hunters actually managed to enter the White Leaves Forest and not die. Aren't they a little too lucky?" Commander Yi faintly smiled. "The laws of the natural world are like steel. Perhaps it's because the strength of these 2 hunters is too weak, to the point that spiritual beasts like the giant viper and the behemoth beasts that have cultivated for many years simply do not care about them. Sometimes the minds of spiritual beasts are also very proud. They are not willing to eat just anyone. So that's how it is. Then there's no need to worry about it." Qin Huan gripped the hilt of his sword and smiled. "Let's continue forward. If we see these 2 hunters, we'll deal with them with a single strike. The Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest is the Iha country's treasure. Besides us, we can't let anyone else covet it." "Yes." Commander Yi clasped his hands, his gaze cold. "It's said that the 7 world palaces have also sent people to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Some people even saw the traces of the venerable immortal Luolan descending the mountain. If the 7 world palaces and the Iha country are fighting over the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, what should we do?" "The 7 world palaces." A vicious glint appeared in Qin Huan's eyes. "The venerable immortal Luolan has always taken 20% of the revenue of our Iha country's treasury, and used it to build the magnificent and marvelous 7 world palaces. However, he has never accepted Royal Father's invitation to leave the mountain. Even when the demons have slaughtered their way to the city gates, he has only sent disciples to assist in battle. I really don't know what Luolan is thinking. Now that he's been concealing his strength and biding his time, he actually has designs on the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. We have no choice but to guard against him." "Yes," Commander Yi said. "We'll move quickly and seize the Heavenly Tomes and Divine Tomes before the 7 world palaces do. Be careful. There are definitely protectors here, and they'll only get stronger and stronger." "Yes." In the grass, dew slowly gathered on her shoulders. A praying mantis cautiously crawled over Qin Yin's fragrant shoulder and clothes. She gave a faint smile and did not harm it. Perhaps even the praying mantis could feel this girl's natural amiability. It did not seem afraid in the slightest. Lin Wuyu saw this and felt a little moved. Qin Yin had always been a carefree and worry-free girl. If she were not embroiled in the war between the Empire and the Iha country, she would probably be even happier. At this moment, Qin Yin's beautiful eyes stared at the distant Qin Huan and the others. So many people. Qin Huan has brought at least 1,000 people into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. There's no lack of divine domain or heavenly realm experts among them. Our situation is getting more and more passive. Lin Wuyu asked, "Who is this Commander Yi?" Qin Yin clearly had a clearer understanding of the Iha country's intelligence. She lowered her voice and said, "Yi Xuanhuan, an expert who cultivates deep in the mountains. It's said that he's an extremely dissolute cultivator, but his talent is extraordinary and his cultivation is astonishing. Half a year ago, the Jinan prince, Qin Yi, personally asked Yi Xuanhuan to come out of seclusion and help him. Afterwards, Yi Xuanhuan was made the commander of the Iha country's heavenly army and was ordered to build a new army of 100,000 people. Now Yi Xuanhuan's position in the Iha country is equal to Long Qianlin, Ji Yao, Man Ning and the others. So he's Yi Xuanhuan. Lin Wuyu frowned. This Yi Xuanhuan was very strong. The ripples from the spirit vein technique were incomparably strong. Moreover, he seemed to be very confident. He did not restrain his Saint Qi at all, and even the pressure lingered around his body at all times. Let's make a detour and get away from this group of people. We'll be the first to enter the depths of the heavenly tome monolith forest. Qin Yin blinked. There's no rush. Lin Muyu suddenly wrapped her arms around her shoulders and said, let's wait a little longer. Immediately, Qin Yin's nose was filled with Lin Muyu's manly scent. She could not help but feel her heart palpitate. Her small face blushed as she looked at Lin Muyu and asked, wait a moment, then what do we do now? Her rosy cheeks were truly too beautiful. With just a glance, Lin Muyu's heart could not help but sway. In her heart, she actually felt like she was taking her girlfriend out to play. Yes, it had been more than 4 years since she had arrived in the Shattered Cauldron realm. In order to survive, Lin Muyu had walked step by step to where he was today. His thinking had also been influenced by the hierarchy of the Shattered Cauldron realm, and he felt that Qin Yin was a high and mighty empress that could not be overstepped. But at this moment, Lin Muyu realized that if the problem was a little simpler, and Qin Yin was just his girlfriend, perhaps the two of them would be much more at ease. Looking at Qin Yin's beautiful eyes that were filled with hope, he faintly smiled and lowered his head to lightly kiss Qin Yin's red lips. As soon as he touched them, he softly said, we can't do anything, because there's a very strong aura rapidly approaching from the depths of the monolith forest. If Qin Huan and his group want to obtain the heavenly tome, it definitely won't be that easy. We just have to wait and see. Oh. Qin Yin's face blushed red. She raised her arms to embrace Lin Muyu's neck and lightly kissed him on the cheek. Afterwards, she quietly lay down in the grass and watched everything in the distance. Chapter 523. Tuck, tuck, tuck. With the sound of hooves, a streak of fire appeared in the depths of the grassland. In the blink of an eye, a knight holding a long sword enshrouded in fire appeared under the moonlight. He was dressed in pure black armor, and his cloak fluttered in the wind. However, his face was truly unflattering. Under the illumination of the moonlight, it was a face that had already rotted for a long time. Even the warhorse he rode was half-rotted. No, strictly speaking, it was not a warhorse, but a beast with a body similar to a warhorse. Its entire body was covered in fiery red fur, and its roar was powerful. Under the moonlight, this knight charged straight at Qin Huan and the others. Without saying a word, the war beast beneath him charged forward like lightning. With a sweep of his long sword, 2 of Qin Huan's subordinates fell off their horses. What the hell is this? After Qin Huan saw the assailant, he could not help but tremble. Pointing his sword at him, he said, Are you a human or a ghost? Jie, this death knight, let out a breath of turbid air. Without saying a word, he only quietly stared at Qin Huan, Yi Xuanhuan, and the others. His long sword slowly rose, his meaning clear. If this group of people wanted to overstep this boundary, they would have to kill him or be killed by him. Yi Xuanhuan's brow furrowed. There really is something strange about the heavenly tome monolith forest. This sort of thing that is neither human nor ghost actually exists. Qin Huan raised his eyebrows and said, He's only one person, while we have over 1,000 experts. What is there to fear? Whoever is willing to take this monster's head first, I will give him a merit. Immediately, a warrior riding an azure mane horse, carrying a warhammer, stepped out from the ranks and said, Your Highness, leave this thing that is neither human nor ghost to me, Wu Qingda. This general will be back soon. Wu Qingda's warhammer had 5 battle spirits circulating around it. As expected, there were many talents in the Lingnan region. This was actually an expert at the peak of the third layer of the heavenly realm. He would probably be able to cultivate into the divine domain very soon. Die. Wuxia raised his warhammer high up and smashed it down, causing flames to erupt. This was an expert who cultivated the law of fire. The flames contained an intense power of the law, and the heat was scorching. However, something unexpected happened. The Death Knight actually raised an arm to block Wuxia's hammer. With a loud bang, his entire left arm was broken. At the same time, the sword in his hand shot out like lightning, directly piercing Wuxia's mouth, and the blade came out from the back of his head. God damn it! Qin Huan was dumbfounded. Wuxia sat on the warhorse and trembled under the reflection of his eyes. His opponent slowly pulled out his sword. Wuxia fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Moreover, the mysterious knight's arm was surrounded by green spirit force. The bent arm slowly straightened and healed itself. What kind of powerful healing ability was this? Not good. Yi Xuanhuan frowned and said, "Your Highness, look at the sword in his hand. It's the embryo of the heavenly book." What? Qin Huan was dumbfounded. That's right, on the blade of the mysterious knight's hand, golden divine characters slowly appeared. Moreover, it blossomed with a slightly dense indigo light. This embryo was actually a mid-rank heavenly book, and it was a mid-rank heavenly book of the law of life. So it was this heavenly book that provided the life energy of this corpse that had died a long time ago, allowing him to become a guardian of the heavenly tome forest. The legend is true, the legend is true. Yi Xuanhuan muttered. What legend? Qin Huan frowned. Yi Xuanhuan respectfully said, 10 years ago, this general traveled through the White Leaves Forest. I heard from a few hermits that in the depths of the White Leaves Forest, there were a few experts that had died a long time ago. They had at least the strength of the divine domain, and after their deaths, they were controlled by gods and became hunters that were neither human nor ghost. The people of the world called them hunting ghost generals. They were vicious creatures that no living beings dared to approach. It seems that the person in front of us is one of the hunting ghost generals. One of them? Qin Huan was stunned. You mean there's more than one of these monsters? I'm afraid so. Yi Xuanhuan's expression turned cold, and he said, Your Highness, send out the Iron Armor Army to charge. The hunting ghost generals are the same as humans. Once their strength is exhausted, they are no different from a cripple. Using the charge of the Iron Armor Army to consume a portion of the spiritual energy of the mid-rank heavenly book it carries, this subordinate will personally cut off its head. I ask for your Highness' approval to send out the Iron Armor Army. Qin Huan was also somewhat confused. He nodded and said, As you wish, send out the Iron Armor Army. Yes. What do they want to do? Qin Yin crouched in the grass and asked in a low voice. Lin Muyu heard even more clearly and said, Send the cannon fodder cavalry to consume the spiritual energy of the hunting ghost general, and then kill it. Qin Yin frowned. Why doesn't Yi Xuanhuan personally go to battle? Don't tell me that the lives of those cavalrymen are not important? Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. In the eyes of the commander, the strength of every army and every soldier is like a chess piece on a chessboard. They are used to defend or to attack. As long as they play their role, it doesn't matter even if they die. I believe that Qin Huan and Yi Xuanhuan also think the same way. Qin Yin remained silent. Lin Muyu thought of another problem. Yi Xuanhuan was so unscrupulous. If she met such an opponent on the battlefield, it would be a little too terrifying. Although Long Qianlin was proficient in battle techniques, he was still a benevolent general after all. He would not be unscrupulous. However, if it was Yi Xuanhuan, it would be a different story. Lin Muyu would rather face Long Qianlin than a despicable person like Yi Xuanhuan. In the distance, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. Nearly 200 armored soldiers brandished their weapons and rushed towards the hunting ghost general. They quickly increased the speed of the war horses to the peak. Under the impact of the hundreds of kilograms of weight of man and horse, even the pressure of the Holy Realm could not withstand it. Roar! The hunting ghost general finally spoke. Although it was just a low roar like that of a wild beast, in the midst of the roar, the fiery red fighting energy around its body rose sharply. It was actually the king's fighting energy. Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. This is actually a master who has a Holy King realm expert. I'm really King Uzi. Qin Yin was dumbfounded. She could not help but squint her beautiful eyes at the man she loved. She could not understand what Lin Muyu said at all. Suddenly, she felt that there were too many things about him that she needed to understand. During the chaotic battle, the hunting ghost general's fiery red longsword danced through the air, shredding one armored cavalier after another. At the same time, its own body was also subjected to one attack after another. Light erupted from its suit of battle armor, and in the blink of an eye, its first suit of battle armor had been broken. Streaks of dark red blood flowed from its body. In just 3 short minutes, close to 30 armored cavaliers had been reduced to corpses, and the masterless war steeds were galloping wildly across the grassland. It's time. Yi Xuanhuan abruptly pulled out his sword before rushing toward the hunting ghost general in a wraith-like manner. The same king's fighting energy erupted from the blade of his sword, and before the hunting ghost general even had a chance to turn around, Yi Xuanhuan had already slashed his sword through the air. Crack! A head that had been dead for a long time flew into the air. The hunting ghost general's battle armor had been destroyed, and it had expended at least a third of its spiritual power before being slain by Yi Xuanhuan. Wah! The battle beast let loose a howl of anguish before falling to the ground along with its master. The flames in its eyes gradually extinguished, and it died just like that. Yi Xuanhuan walked forward with a cold look in his eyes before picking up the hunting ghost general's longsword. He exerted a bit of force, and his king's fighting energy surged into the blade of the sword. Immediately, a burst of indigo light surged forth. It was indeed a mid-grade heavenly tome, and the instantaneous influx of life force almost made Yi Xuanhuan's entire body feel so comfortable that he almost wanted to cry out. He returned to Qin Huan's side with the longsword in his hand, and said with a smile, I wonder what kind of godly being wrote this mid-grade heavenly tome prototype. He slowly sheathed the longsword as he spoke, then fastened the scabbard onto the buckle of his military belt. Qin Huan furrowed his brows. It was clear that Yi Xuanhuan had no intention of handing over the mid-grade heavenly tome prototype. Instead, he had already decided to take it for himself. This made Qin Huan a little unhappy, but he couldn't say it out loud. After all, Yi Xuanhuan was the most powerful being in their group, and he was a powerful being on the same level as the Holy King. Whether or not they could obtain the Divine Tome prototype would depend on him. Shall we continue? Qin Huan asked in an indifferent manner. Yes. Yi Xuanhuan cupped his hands and smiled. Qin Huan continued. Commander Yi has served the country and killed this hunting ghost general. Once I return to 100 Ridge City, I will definitely report this to Royal Father. This time, Commander Yi will definitely be promoted. Perhaps, if Royal Father is happy, he will confer the title of Commander Yi as one of the new 7 marshals of Iha country. Yi Xuanhuan's eyes lit up and he beamed with joy. Many thanks for your support, Your Highness. This general swears loyalty and devotion to you. Good. Let's go. Yes. Not long after, Qin Huan led the troop of 1,000 people out of sight. Those soldiers who had died in battle were not even buried. They had been too impatient for success, and had gone to seize the treasures in the depths of the heavenly tome forest. Lin Muyu stood up and whistled to summon Takshu. She said, Xiao Yin, let's take a detour through the forest on the right and advance at full speed. We have to reach the depths of the forest ahead of Qin Huan's group. Yes. Qin Yin also mounted her horse, and the 2 war horses galloped away under the moonlight. After circling around a hill, the 2 of them took the southeast route and galloped across the plains under the moonlight. Fortunately, the depths of the forest were mostly fertile land. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for the war horses to pass through, and they would not have been able to reach Qin Huan's group. In the end, they had not gone too far when they suddenly saw the faint glow of fire in front of them. This glow was too familiar. It was another patrolling ghost general. Let's go around. Qin Yin's eyes were filled with worry. She had seen the power of the patrolling ghost general, and was unwilling to provoke this trouble. However, Lin Muyu shook her head. It's too late. The patrolling ghost general must have sensed our aura, and came over. Besides, I also want to meet this patrolling ghost general and see just how powerful it is. It's 2 against 1, so we won't be at a disadvantage. Besides, Qin Yin giggled. Besides, the patrolling ghost general has a mid-grade heavenly tome embryonic sword in his hands. Isn't that right? You must have taken a fancy to this. Lin Muyu smiled. Xiao Yin, you're so smart. How can I lie to you in the future? In the blink of an eye, a patrolling ghost general that looked almost exactly the same as before appeared in the fertile land. It opened its foul mouth at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin from afar and yelled. Chapter 524. No need to be courteous with him. Let's attack together. Lin Muyu said in a low voice. I'll attract his attention and use the 7 luminaries' holy gourd to deplete his energy. Xiao Yin, you find a chance to kill him. This mid-tier heavenly book embryo sword is mine. As she spoke, Lin Muyu leaped off her horse and pulled out the stellar sword. The moment the substandard god artifact sword was unsheathed, the world seemed to turn dark. Dozens of golden god binding chains encircled the stellar sword, greatly increasing its destructive power. When her figure reached a certain height, she pounced down and executed the 5 mountains descend from the heavens with the might of Mt Tai. Roar! The ghost general seemed to be able to sense the power of the enemy in front of him. He roared and the king's battle flame danced wildly on the sword in his hand. He concentrated almost all his energy on the sword to block Lin Muyu's attack. Bang! After all, Lin Muyu had only used 70% of her strength. Her stellar sword was forcefully deflected as she retreated backwards. On the other hand, the patrolling ghost general borrowed the force of the beast's impact and charged forward instead. With a wave of his sword, he swept it horizontally towards the place where Lin Muyu had landed. Rays of sword light flashed as he slashed his sword 3 times in an instant. Such a powerful sword aura. Lin Muyu naturally knew how powerful the Holy King's realm was. This ghost general must have been an expert swordsman when he was alive. Buzz! Raising his left arm, the divine power of the 7 luminaries' holy gourd surged and quickly condensed into the image of the dragon blood battle shield. At the same time, the star lotus armor also appeared behind the dragon blood battle shield. Dang dang dang. Several golden rays burst out, illuminating the surrounding field. The ghost general roared. Seeing that it couldn't break through the opponent's defense, he immediately activated his king's battle flame and launched a series of attacks. In just 10 seconds, the hunting ghost general had slashed almost 50 times, and cracks had started to appear on the dragon blood battle shield. However, Lin Muyu could sense that the hunting ghost general's aura and strength had decreased by at least 30%, while she had only focused on defense. Her martial soul's strength and doqi had decreased by less than 5%. No matter how she looked at it, it was a huge win for her. Fuse! With a shout, the god-binding chains and the 7 luminaries' mysterious sword fused into a huge sword that circled around the star's sword. Lin Muyu spun on the spot and swung her sword, forcing the hunting ghost general to retreat. At this moment, Qin Yin's attack finally began. The heaven-suppressing sword, which was filled with Star's battle aura, carried the power of the 5th style of the Dragon Slayer skill, Horn Dragon Bind, and directly hit the hunting ghost general's back. Hong! With a clear dragon roar, a true dragon god binding shackles turned into a horned dragon that wrapped around the hunting ghost general. The dragon's tail pierced deep into the ground, imprisoning the hunting ghost general where he was. He struggled desperately, but he could not break free at all. Alright, Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh out loud. She raised her hand, and the gourd vine flew up, adding another layer of shackles to the hunting ghost general. Her right hand tossed away the stellar sword. Flames lingered around it, and the body of the sword began to spin rapidly. The dragon flame spiral break had already begun to accumulate power. Moreover, this spiral break contained the power of the 7 luminaries' immortal sword. Its destructive power was simply unimaginable. Roar! The hunting ghost general's last roar actually contained a little panic. With a pu sound, the stellar sword flew past and directly crushed his chest. Immediately, This Holy King realm powerhouse that was neither human nor ghost was immediately reincarnated. Lin Muyu grabbed the hunting ghost general's sword with unusual joy. A mysterious life force flowed into her body, and it seemed to have begun to quickly restore the battle aura and the power of the martial soul in her body. It was indeed a good treasure. After quickly sheathing the sword, Lin Muyu said happily, "All right, the mission is completed. Let's continue." Qin Yin smiled and asked, "Since you likes the heavenly book embryo so much, why don't we continue to look for it? There must be more hunting ghost generals around. Let's just take all the heavenly book embryos of the law of life." "Forget it." Lin Muyu looked at the remains of the hunting ghost general on the ground and said, "They're dead, but they can't rest in peace. Their souls can't reincarnate. It's already tragic enough. We've already committed a sin by killing one, so let's not commit too many sins. Let's go." Moonlight seeped through the forest. Scattered all around were all sorts of human books, spiritual books, and inscribed stone tablets. However, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were no longer interested. The power of spiritual books was only so. Killing an armor demon would probably be somewhat strenuous. If they wanted to learn, it would be better to learn earthly books or heavenly books. At the very least, it was worth learning. The war horses galloped forward, and for the most part, it was impossible for them to sleep. After galloping for nearly 10 li towards the center of the heavenly book forest, the surrounding scenery changed slightly. The ground was filled with potholes, as if something had destroyed it. However, these potholes covered the entire forest, yet not a single stone tablet had been damaged. This could only mean one thing. Someone had intentionally or unintentionally destroyed the terrain of the forest, but had intentionally left those stone tablets undamaged. A little further ahead, there was a huge palm print on the ground. The palm print was nearly 10 meters long, and had sunk nearly a meter into the ground. It was probably a palm that had fallen from the sky, and the strength of the palm was extremely astonishing. "This," Qin Yin blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "Such a powerful palm strength, can brother you do it?" Lin Muyu shook her head. "He can't. My palm technique originated from Chu's fire palm, but I ask myself, I don't have this kind of palm strength." "That's right." Qin Yin sensed for a moment, but still seemed to be able to feel the faint ice energy around the palm print. She said, "The one who used the palm is an ice law controller. Strong. Shockingly strong." Lin Muyu furrowed her brow. "This place isn't too safe. Let's go quickly. Otherwise, if we run into them, we might be in danger." The two continued to urge their horses forward. In front of them was still a vast expanse of fertile land. At this time, the east was already beginning to brighten. It was almost dawn, and the last rays of moonlight fell upon the earth. In the distance, a stone tablet glowed with an enchanting luster. Qin Yin saw it clearly and could not help but smile. "Brother Yu, it's the earthly book. The earthly book." "Haha, that's right." Lin Muyu was also overjoyed. She urged her horse to gallop over, and parted the dense foliage of the forest. She saw that the bright stone tablet was engraved with lines of divine characters, and there was a very conspicuous earth word at the bottom. Indeed, this was an earth tombstone tablet. "Who wants to learn it?" Lin Muyu asked. Qin Yin said, "You know a lot of words. You come after you learn it, teach Xiao Yin the other heavenly books." "Oh okay," Lin Muyu secretly sighed. When she first learned the Oracle Bone script, it was to make it easier for her to pick up girls. Now, she did not forget her original intention. She could actually use the Oracle Bone script to pick up the supreme ruler of this realm, the human empress. There were beauties in the books, and the ancients did not lie. This was a wind elemental book. When Lin Muyu was engrossed in reading it, her spiritual sense instantly flew out of her eye and into the stone tablet. It was as if she had become one with the heavenly book. Her spiritual sense was placed in a field of raging wind. Sharp gusts of wind raged past, shattering the giant rocks on the high mountains. The wind swept across the earth, bringing with it a destructive divine power. It was a storm. The edge of the heavens nurtured a bone-chilling wind. The sleeping anger was awakened by the common people. The wind was raging, and the earth was wailing. All living things lost their way forward. False lies blinded all conscience between heaven and earth. The god of storm had awakened from his slumber. With boundless anger, he tore everything apart. Death Storm. When Lin Muyu had completely mastered the heavenly book of storm, the stone tablet collapsed with a crash. Divine power instantly rushed into Lin Muyu's brain. In an instant, her Yi fell into a state of chaos. Lin Muyu had to concentrate to accept the heavenly book of storm into her Yi and make it a part of her mind. He staggered and was caught by Qinin. He only felt that his mind was filled with storms and destruction. The power of the Earth Book was so strong that he felt like he was about to lose control. "Are you okay, big brother you?" Qinin asked worriedly. I'm fine." Lin Muyu shook his head. The spirit pulse technique suppressed his spiritual sense, so that nothing would go wrong. At this time he was a little sad. Sad that the power of the Earth Book was so strong. Perhaps with Qinin's ability, she could only learn the Earth Book. The heavenly book was not something that she could control with the strength of her soul. "Now can you write this Earth Book?" Qinin asked. "I should be able to." Lin Muyu thought for a moment. "If I write 10 Death Storm Earth books, I should be able to succeed at least one." Qinin smiled. "The chances of success aren't very high. Of course, otherwise the Earth Book would be worthless." Lin Muyu looked into the distance. He couldn't see the second Earth Book stone tablet, so he said, "Let's go, Xiaoyin. We'll keep looking. If we find the second stone tablet, I'll let you comprehend it." Okay. The sun slowly rose. Under the morning light, the figures of a man and a woman were reflected on the grass. When Qinin was concentrating on looking for stone tablets in the surroundings, she suddenly heard a pa-pa-pa sound coming from the grass not far away. It sounded like an electric current. She immediately raised her palm and let out a soft shout. Starlight flew out and separated the grass leaves. Suddenly, rays of purple light split open a black hole. Heavens, what is that? Qinin was shocked. Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. She shouted, "Careful, Luolan is coming." What? A figure flashed through the spatial crack. Luolan's figure was frighteningly fast. With a whoosh, she was already in the air. She opened her palm and divine power surrounded it. She smiled. This noble one thought that coming to the heavenly tome forest would only bring a few heavenly tomes and divine tomes to strengthen the 7 world palaces. "I didn't think that there would be an unexpected harvest." Qinjin's daughter, "You've been a monarch for long enough. Die." Under the control of a god realm expert's domain, Qinin was almost unable to move. She looked helplessly at Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu felt like her heart was about to shatter. With a loud roar, she activated the prelude of the 7 glorious stars transformation without holding back. She broke through Luolan's godly state domain in one fell swoop, dashed past Qinin, and rolled off the back of the warhorse. Bang! With a fierce palm strike, Qinin's horse was instantly turned into a pile of dust. Lin Muyu stood up and charged at Luolan. There was no way she could escape. Her twin martial souls fused together, and the 7 luminaries' celestial sword appeared around her. She clasped her palms together and unleashed the full power of the 7 luminaries' stars transformation. Chapter 525. Bright stars mixed with the whistling sound of the king's battle flame rushed towards Luolan in the sky. Even Luolan did not dare to underestimate this attack. He opened his palms and divine power surged. Balls of flames whistled out and condensed into the shape of a fire umbrella. With a sinister smile on his face he said, "With your advancement, you will definitely step into the godly state in less than 10 years. How can I allow you to live in this world?" Boom, boom, boom. The 7 glorious stars transformation kept splashing on the fire umbrella. Flames and starlight soared into the sky. Heaven and earth shook, and the sun and moon lost their light. Shock waves swept out in all directions, uprooting the grass and trees on the ground. Under the destructive force, even the stone tablets of the heavenly book in the distance could not escape, and were all shattered into pieces. After this attack, Luolan's aura weakened a little. At this moment, a person had already separated the flames. A dazzling star soared with the power of the seven glorious, celestial sword martial souls slashed down from the sky. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Luolan raised his head and his face was filled with anger. Courting death. Turning his palm into a claw, Luolan's 5 fingers grabbed the star's sword like an iron claw. With a dang sound he grabbed the sword's body. However, a ray of light directly leaked out from the sword's body and attacked Luolan's body. It was the light-splitting slash. Under the attack of the pure energy body, Luolan's body trembled. The faint godly state aura on the surface of his body slowly dissipated. However, his fingers grabbed the sword's blade even tighter. His eyes were filled with anger as he said, "This star's sword is a treasure that I gave to the god of the heavenly realm. How did it appear in the hands of a little bastard like you? Give it to me." Luolan forcefully grabbed the sword, and a strong force forced Lin Muyu to let go. Swoosh. The sword hilt left his hand, but it was accompanied by thick flames. Lin Muyu's handsome face was almost distorted. He raised his iron fist and endured the strong backlash of the 7 glorious stars' transformation. He heavily attacked Luolan's abdomen with the 6 glorious heavenly tribulation. Luolan's eyes were cold. He lightly lifted his left leg and kicked at Lin Muyu's fist with divine power. Bang! An explosion of energy reverberated through the air, and the 6 luminaries' heavenly tribulation was scattered just like that. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu's right hand was shaken to the point where it went numb. After all, there was a great disparity in strength. How could a Holy King-level elite fight against a God Realm elite head-on? But at this moment, Lin Muyu suddenly withdrew her right palm. The flames were dense, and the star's sword in Luolan's hand spun rapidly. Crack! Luolan was actually unable to hold onto the stellar sword. Under Lin Muyu's control, the stellar sword spun in the air. Lin Muyu then turned around and sent a dragon flame spiral at Luolan's head. Insignificant skill. Luolan laughed heartily. She opened her mouth and blew out a gust of air. With a hua sound, it turned into a piercingly cold storm and directly blew the stellar sword away. At the same time, she turned around and punched Lin Muyu with her left fist. Luolan's speed was too fast. Lin Muyu was caught off guard, and could only summon the dragon blood shield on her right arm to block it. Bang! Her entire right arm felt like it was about to shatter. There was a sweet taste in her throat, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Lin Muyu directly fell from her mouth. At the same time, Qin Yin's figure appeared behind Luolan, and the heaven-suppressing sword stabbed straight at the back of Luolan's head like lightning. Clang! Sparks flew, and in the midst of the sound of metal colliding, Luolan's body trembled. The god state Gang Qi at the back of her head was slightly pierced by the heaven-suppressing sword. The tip of the sword even pierced the surface of her skin, and it was already bleeding. Just as Luolan angrily tried to turn around, Qin Yin's beautiful face was covered with frost. Her left hand lightly opened, and the god-binding chains shone brightly. She heavily slapped the hilt of the sword. Bang! The golden dragon flame of the 4th heaven of Zhanlong was sent out by her palm. With the heaven-suppressing sword as a medium, the flames exploded and instantly swallowed Luolan's body. At this time, Lin Muyu fell heavily to the ground. Looking at the soaring flames in the sky, she murmured, "Xiao Yin." Although the golden dragon flame attack seemed to have succeeded, Luolan's aura did not weaken by much. Within the flames, a huge flaming palm slapped out, straight for Qin Yin's chest. Boom! In an instant, the sacred dragon shield shattered, and the 3 protective god-binding chains also shattered. The difference in cultivation between Qin Yin and Luolan was too great. Under the power of Luolan's palm, her delicate body fell like a kite with its string cut. Blood sprayed through the air. She was already seriously injured. "Qin Yin, you must not die." As if possessed, Lin Muyu gathered all her remaining strength and rushed over. Her falling star steps flashed, and she hugged Qin Yin in the air. Both of them tumbled to the ground. Behind them, Luolan's voice sounded like a demon from hell. "That's fine. Since the 2 of you die together, then let Qin Jin's daughter and adopted son go to hell together." The sky was filled with flames. Luolan's palms held a flaming mountain range in the shape of an impact. Her eyes were filled with arrogance and laughter. She suddenly waved her arms and the destructive impact instantly fell from the sky, covering an area of nearly 100 meters. With Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's current state, there was no way they could escape in such a short time. However, at this time, a jade pendant appeared in Lin Muyu's hand. The golden characters on the jade pendant shot into the sky, glowing with a rich green light. In an instant, it activated the power of heaven and earth. It was a supreme-grade spiritual tool embryo of the law of space. Wang. In half a second, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin in her arms disappeared. All that was left on the ground was the swirling battle aura. In that split second, Luo Lan's fierce attack had also landed. Pung. The ground shook violently, and a patch of green grass turned into a basin. Flames shot into the sky. Luo Lan's attack seemed to have created a purgatory on the ground. It was extremely terrifying. Sensing that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's auras had not disappeared, Luo Lan suddenly turned around and saw that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had appeared in the forest 200 meters behind him. A supreme-grade spiritual tool embryo of the law of space could only teleport them so far in an instant. If it was a heavenly book or a divine book, it might be able to teleport them thousands of miles away. What a cunning person! Luo Lan had an absolute advantage in terms of power, but he could not kill Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. He suddenly became a little angry and flew into the air with his palm full of divine power. He was determined to kill them with his next attack. After using the Shattering Void shuttle once, Luo Lan had to rest for a while before he could use it again. Therefore, he could only fly over and look for an opportunity to kill Lin Muyu and Qin Yin again. However, when Luo Lan arrived above the two of them, Lin Muyu had already regained some of his stamina. He activated his remaining power, and a mystical golden true qi circled around his arms. It was none other than the Fuxi celestial power in his mortal body. Furthermore, it was a very pure strand of the Fuxi celestial power. Even Luo Lan's celestial power was nowhere near as pure as the Fuxi celestial power. Do you want to fight again? Luo Lan squinted his eyes with a faint smile on his face. Although the divine power in Lin Muyu's arms was very pure, its strength was far inferior to his. Perhaps he only needed one blow to see the gap between them. How could Lin Muyu not know the gap between them? However, he had no choice but to fight with all his might. Otherwise, he and Qin Yin would die here. The golden battle energy on his arms kept circling. Lin Muyu's handsome face was full of resentment as he said, "Luo Lan, you bastard! You killed Grandpa Lei Hong. Today we will settle the old and new accounts together." Bastard! Luo Lan was furious. He raised his arms and divine power enshrouded him. In Iha country, no one dared to scold him, Venerable Luo Lan, as a dog. Now that he was scolded by Lin Muyu, he naturally felt very unhappy. Pa! Lin Muyu leaped up into the air. She had already accumulated all of her strength. The Fuxi celestial energy and the power of the Star Chun art surged in her arms, and she was like an arrow that shot into the sky. She raised her arms up high, and in an instant, the celestial energy in her arms cooled down and turned into the ice spirit star energy. She slammed right into Luo Lan's fiery golden palm. Puff! There was a muffled sound, but it was not the expected explosion. On the ground, Qin Yin's eyes widened as her body trembled. She was worried about Lin Muyu, but there was nothing she could do. In front of an ultimate god like Luo Lan, what could she do as a heavenly venerable? She was full of unwillingness, but she could only silently pray to God to protect Lin Muyu. Hiss hiss, streams of icy qi rose into the air, and Lin Muyu turned into an ice arrow that brushed past Luo Lan's shoulder. In the next moment, she started to fall to the ground. Wah! She spat out a mouthful of blood, and the clothes on her chest and shoulders were torn apart. Her body was covered in wounds, and it looked extremely terrifying. If it was a normal person, they would have been torn to pieces by Luo Lan's attack. In the air, Luo Lan's body stood still in the wind. A few seconds later, frost climbed up his beard, and then more and more. In the blink of an eye, Luo Lan's body was covered in frost and turned into a block of ice. The only difference between Luo Lan's body and the people who died under the jade snow ice before was that Luo Lan's body did not explode. Instead, wisps of golden divine power appeared in his meridians, slowly dispersing the power of ice. Lin Muyu fell heavily to the ground, but she struggled to raise her head and said, "Xiaoyin, kill him." Qinyin held the heaven-subduing sword without saying a word. Her snow-white long legs slightly lowered, and rays of starlight enshrouded her surroundings. After accumulating some power, she leaped up and slashed at Luolan, who was in the air like a crescent moon. However, the moment the blade approached Luolan's body, there was a sudden pop sound. The sword light was rebounded as if some kind of restriction was protecting Luolan. Qinyin was rebounded by the divine power, and flew away with a whimper. Her injuries worsened. Lin Muyu looked at her dispiritedly and gritted her teeth. Her palm flashed across her Qianquan pouch, and took out a dazzling battle axe. With a light flip of her wrist, heaven and earth energy was activated. Earth Law Lower Grade Earth Book Rock. Boom boom boom. On the ground, a series of rocks shot up into the sky. The power of the Earth Book was actually so shocking. With a bang, a sharp rock all landed heavily on Luolan's lower body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Even though he was a God State expert, after enduring so many attacks from Lin Muyu and Qinyin, Luolan seemed to be at his limit. Chapter 526. Rustle, rustle. Ice shards continued to fall. Luolan's old face, which was almost distorted, was filled with anger and humiliation. His palms trembled slightly, and rays of golden divine power quickly revolved around him. He looked down at Lin Muyu and Qinyin, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ai, Lin Muyu helplessly sighed. He no longer had any strength left in his body. Not far away, Qinyin was lying under a maple tree. She didn't say a single word, and seemed to have fainted from her injuries. Xiaoyin. Lin Muyu leaned on his long sword as he slowly stood up, and limped towards Qinyin. His vision was a little blurry, and he almost couldn't see Qinyin's figure clearly. Luolan looked at him in the air, and actually felt a trace of pity in his heart. Lin Muyu, you were originally a peerless talent, but why did you have to be my enemy? I'll give you a chance now. As long as you leave the Empire and join the 7 world palaces, this sovereign will accept you as my disciple. How about it? Lin Muyu raised his head and looked at him. He couldn't help but find it funny and burst out laughing, causing his wounds to ache. Luolan, you're just a despicable person without any martial virtue. You've been cultivating for thousands of years, but you still haven't made any progress. You think you're worthy to be my master? Put away your hypocritical mask. I feel disgusted just looking at you. The golden light in Luolan's palm became even more intense. His voice also turned cold. Since you want to die, I'll give you a complete corpse on account of your talent. Buzz. Luolan raised his palm, and a golden light soared into the sky. This attack was definitely going to take Lin Muyu's life. Lin Muyu walked towards Qinyin step by step, completely ignoring her. Looking at Qinyin's beautiful face lying under the tree, he actually felt a trace of warmth in his heart. It seemed like it was worth it to be able to see her one more time before he died. Luolan didn't understand love, and naturally wouldn't have tender feelings for the fairer sex. His powerful palm was about to descend from the sky. Stop. Just as the palm was about to land, a dignified voice suddenly sounded from the distance. A figure flashed through the bushes like a bolt of lightning, shooting out from the depths of the forest. Before Luolan could even see the person's face clearly, he had already struck out with his palm. The power of the divine heaven realm quickly swept through the surroundings, and his 5 fingers were filled with icy qi as he struck out towards Luolan. Who are you? Luolan didn't have time to say anything. She could only send the palm that she had originally intended for Lin Muyu to the middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. When the 2 palms of fire and ice collided, a gust of wind suddenly swept through the surroundings, blowing Lin Muyu to the ground beside Qinyin. She almost couldn't open her eyes. Bang! With a sudden burst of energy, the middle-aged cultivator's palm surged with boundless ice attribute profound energy, and actually forced Luolan to fly back several steps before stopping. Blood had already flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her injuries had also worsened. Who exactly are you? Luolan quickly recovered the energy in her body, and her gaze fell on the person who had just arrived. The middle-aged man had a dignified appearance as he calmly smiled and said, "Ice Palm Wutong. I have guarded this White Leaves forest for nearly 10,000 years. Why, since you've already stepped into the divine realm, why don't you ascend, and instead act like a tyrant in the mortal realm?" "Ice Palm Wutong?" Luolan coldly said. "And who is Ice Palm Wutong?" Wutong's face was filled with pride. He crossed his arms and laughed loudly. "Before God Emperor Fuxi ascended, he ordered us to guard the forest of heavenly tome monoliths in the White Leaves forest. Anyone who doesn't have a fortuitous encounter that intrudes is to be killed without question. Old brat, hurry up and get out of the White Leaves forest. Even if I don't kill you, someone will naturally kill you. Immediately, scram." He pointed outside the forest and growled, "I'll count to 3. If you don't scram, the only thing left for you is death." Luolan had never been threatened like this before. Her face instantly turned ashen, but there was nothing she could do. The person in front of her had a deep understanding of the laws of ice, and his ice palm was incomparably powerful. Just now, when she had exchanged a palm strike, her arms were still numb and cold. She probably didn't even have the strength to resist a second palm strike. If this Wutong really wanted to kill her, she would probably be killed as well. Swish swish, streams of ice energy began to encircle Wutong's palm. He was already determined to kill. Luolan's expression turned cold, and the divine power in her body seemed to slowly respond. The time limit for Void Tread was up. With a crash, a spatial crack appeared behind Luolan. He floated in, and looked at Lin Muyu from afar. He sneered, "Lin Muyu Chinin, we will meet again. Your lives are mine, Luolan. Remember this." Swish. Luolan's figure disappeared along with the spatial crack. Wutong turned around and walked towards Lin Muyu. At this moment, Chinin had already awoken. Her beautiful eyes looked at Wutong, and she asked, Was it this uncle who saved us?" Lin Muyu nodded. "Yes." Wutong did not buy it. He pointed outside the forest of heavenly tome monoliths and said, "All of you leave as well. If you don't leave in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, I will turn you into ice fragments with a single palm strike. Don't doubt my words. My nickname of Grim-Faced, Wutong, is not just for show." Lin Muyu fell to the ground, and then sat cross-legged there. She said, "We're already so heavily injured that we don't have the strength to walk. If you want to kill us, then do it. It's just that I didn't think that the people God Emperor Fuxi left to guard the heavenly tome monolith forest would be so indiscriminate." Wutong's sword-like eyebrows rose. "What do you mean indiscriminate? This Supreme One is only responsible for guarding the heavenly tome monolith forest. I don't care about anything else. I don't care who you are. In any case, leave immediately." He looked at Lin Muyu and Chinin, who was still lying on the ground. Suddenly he creased his brow and said, "Forget it. I'll give you 2 hours to heal your wounds. Once you've recovered some strength, you can leave." Lin Muyu nodded and took out a bottle of healing medicine from her cosmos sack. She gave a bottle to Chinin, and then sprinkled some medicine on her wounds. Afterwards, she took out a new set of hunter's clothes and put them on. She sat cross-legged on the ground, and then brought her palms together to heal her wounds. Fuxi's divine energy flowed through her meridians like a spring breeze, unclogging the blockages. Streams of faint golden light flowed around her body, creating a marvelous sight. Wutong crossed his arms and looked at Lin Muyu from a distance. When he saw the Fuxi's divine energy flowing through Lin Muyu's body, he could not help but be slightly startled. His brow creased, but he did not say anything. Several minutes later, there was suddenly a sharp whistle from the forest. An old man dressed in an azure robe appeared in the forest. He wore a golden badge on his chest. He was a member of the 7 world palaces, and had the cultivation of a holy venerable. Unsurprisingly, he was Luolan's disciple. Lin Muyu, Chinin. He quickly recognized them, and when he saw that Lin Muyu and Chinin were heavily injured and had already lost the ability to fight, he rushed over with a loud laugh. Laws of wind danced wildly in his palm as he laughed loudly. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, but by chance you find it by chance. I, Duan Mufang, am going to make a great contribution to the 7 world palaces today. However, before he could completely unleash his palm force, Ice Palm Wutong suddenly rushed forward. He suddenly stomped on the ground and looked at his opponent in the air. Icy chi surged in his palm as he roared angrily. You dare to kill someone in my territory? Duan Mufang abruptly raised his head, and his face instantly paled. He had been careless and had not sensed that there was a saintly heaven realm expert beside him. Wu Tong's palm force descended from the sky, as if a glacier had descended. How could Duan Mufang block it? His 2 palms instantly shattered into a pile of ice, and his body was unable to move. He was directly smashed into pieces by Wu Tong's palm. At the same time, with a bang, a massive palm of ice landed on the ground. It was exactly the same as the one that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had seen before, presumably Wu Tong's handiwork. This ancient expert that guarded the heavenly tome monolith forest was actually so terrifying. After cultivating for over 10,000 years, even if he had not broken into the divine realm, his strength was probably no less than the exalted god Luo Lan's. Clap clap. After landing, Wu Tong looked at Duan Mufang's dismembered corpse and lightly clapped his hands. In the territory of Ice Palm Wutong, only I can casually kill someone. Humph. As Lin Muyu healed her wounds, she narrowed her eyes as she watched the battle unfold. Her heart was in turmoil. What a fine Ice Palm Wutong. His strength and character were both rather solid. It seemed that he would not die at Luo Lan's hands in this heavenly tome monolith forest. As he continued to heal his wounds, Fushi's divine power was an innate healing divine power. He quickly healed his injured body. To the side, Qinin also sat cross-legged, the god-binding chains transforming into the image of a golden divine dragon that circled around her graceful figure. With the bloodline of the true dragon, the speed at which she healed her wounds was not much slower than Lin Muyu's. Not long after, when Lin Muyu's wounds had mostly healed, a clear and bright laughter suddenly came from the forest. Suddenly, a hearty laughter came from above the forest. Wu Tong, you weakling, why haven't you come out yet? Your grandpa Zhengjian is here. Zhengjian? Wu Tong's body trembled, his straight eyebrows knitting together. That ugly freak actually came at a time like this. Bastard, he's simply a bastard. This old man's wishful thinking is going to come to nothing. Whoosh. On the branches of the forest, a middle-aged man dressed in fiery red soft armor suddenly landed on the ground. His body was surrounded by the domain of the divine heaven realm. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he said with a smile, "Just now, this old man sensed energy ripples in this area, and even gods appeared. I was worried that if you were killed and had your head cut off, you would lose face for the god emperor, so I came to see if you were dead or not." Wu Tong immediately patted his chest and said, "Your grandpa's palm energy is vigorous, so how could I have been killed? But you, on the other hand, are you running to my place to escape? Ha ha ha, these past few days have not been peaceful. Quite a few experts have entered the heavenly tome monolith forest. I'm afraid that your territory will soon be lost." T. Zhang Jian's temperament was clearly a little more explosive. He said, "This old man was just fretting about not having a place to use my fire fist. The more those people come, the better." As he spoke, Zhang Jian finally saw Lin Muyu and Qin Yin behind Wu Tong. When he saw the golden Fuxi divine power flowing on the surface of Lin Muyu's body, he could not help but tremble. He said, Who are they?" "Fated people, my guests," Wu Tong indifferently said. T. Zhang Jian quickly walked forward, arriving in front of Lin Muyu. He raised his hand and pressed it on Lin Muyu's shoulder. Immediately, a vigorous flame energy surged into his body. "You don't be impudent," Wu Tong growled. Zhang Jian did not care. Only when his power was being resisted by the Fuxi divine power in Lin Muyu's body did he suddenly open his eyes and retreat several steps. He knelt on one knee before Lin Muyu, cupped his fists and said, "Fire Fist Zheng Jian pays his respects to the successor of Fuxi." Chapter 527. Fushi's successor? Lin Muyu's eyes widened. Why do you call me Fushi's successor?" Zhang Jian raised his head and smiled. Because your body contains a strand of God Emperor Fuxi's divine power before his ascension. This feeling is far too familiar. So you are the successor that God Emperor Fuxi left in the mortal realm. Subordinate Zhang Jian pays his respects to Lord Successor. If you have any requests, Zhang Jian will definitely help you. As he spoke, Zhang Jian glared at Wu Tong and said, Old brat, aren't you coming to pay your respects? Have you already forgotten the teachings that God Emperor Fuxi instilled in us before his ascension? Wu Tong could only kneel on one knee and say, Subordinate Ice Palm Wu Tong pays his respects to Fuxi's successor. Lin Muyu suddenly felt as if she had profited from a disaster. Fuxi's heavenly tome was truly a precious treasure. It had actually allowed her to become Fuxi's successor in this unfamiliar place. She felt as if she had grasped onto a life-saving straw. You are all people that Fuxi left behind before his ascension? Lin Muyu asked. Yes. Zhang Jian said. Before the God Emperor ascended, he left behind the 4 absolutes of white leaf, to guard the heavenly tome forest of monoliths, to prevent the divine characters within the forest from being stolen by vile people with evil intentions. 4 absolutes of white leaf? Yes, the 4 absolutes are spiritual scholar Su Hao, Fire Fist Zhang Jian, Ice Palm Wu Tong, and the Demon King that entered a berserk state over 3,000 years ago and was sealed by spiritual scholar. Demon King. Lin Muyu was somewhat dumbfounded. That was definitely something incredible. You can all get up first. There's no need to kneel while talking. Many thanks, successor. Ice Palm Wu Tong stood up and respectfully said, Not long ago, the seal of the Heavenly Imperial Gate was opened. I presume it was the successor's doing. If not for that, the power of heaven and earth would not have returned to the shattered cauldron realm. Heavenly Imperial Gate? Lin Muyu was confused. Wu Tong said, Yes, the seal of the Heavenly Imperial Gate is completely tied to a divine book. This book is called Fuxi's Heavenly Tome. As long as the Fated One opens the Fuxi's Heavenly Tome, the Heavenly Imperial Gate will be reopened. So that's how it is. In that case, I was indeed the one who broke the seal. Successor, who is this lady? Zhang Jian's gaze fell on Qin Yin. The more he looked at her, the more beautiful she became. She was as beautiful as a fairy who had descended from heaven. She is. Lin Muyu thought about it and said with a smile, She is my younger sister, Qin Yin. Qin Yin smiled. Hello both of you. Wu Tong and Zhang Jian immediately became excited. Hello, miss. Zhang Jian did not know that many things had happened in the mortal realm, so he did not know who Qin Yin was. He only nodded and said, This time, successor has come to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, most likely to search for the mysteries of the Heavenly Tome? Yes, tell me about the secrets of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Lin Muyu straightened her body and said with a smile. Zhang Jian cupped his fists and said, Before the Fuxi Celestial Emperor ascended, he left behind the 4 grates of white leaves to guard the steel forest. Now we've driven away a lot of giant vipers, fire monkeys, behemoths, and other spirit beasts to set up obstacles on the periphery of the steel forest. Then, in the steel forest region, a depth of 3,000 meters will be guarded by the hunting ghost generals commanded by the spirit scholar. This region is filled with inscriptions of the spirit tome. Wu Tong and I will guard the area within 8,000 meters. This area is filled with inscriptions of the earth tome. Another 15,000 meters will be the area guarded by the spirit scholar, Su Hao. He has been studying the heavenly tome of the law of life, commanding a group of hunting ghost generals that are neither human nor ghost. Their strength is unknown. There are some inscriptions of the heavenly tome buried in this area. Further in is the place where the Demon King is sealed. The Demon King has forgotten the teachings of the Celestial Emperor and has entered a berserk state. Lin Muyu asked, Can I learn these stone tablets? Zhang Jian smiled. Before the God Emperor ascended, he left behind these stone tablets precisely so that the heavenly tomes would not be completely lost. As Fuxi's successor, these stone tablets were originally left behind for you. So that's how it is. Wu Tong said, Successor, that God realm expert who wanted to kill you just now, what's going on? He's called Luolan. He's the backer of the Iha kingdom, and also my mortal enemy. I once died at his hands, Lin Muyu's eyes were suffused with faint hatred. Wu Tong took a deep breath and said, "Truly a pity. If I had known earlier, this subordinate would definitely have taken his dog head for master. Luolan is not that easy to deal with." Lin Muyu shook her head. "He can shatter space and come and go as he pleases. Killing him is not easy, but the two of you must be extremely careful. This time, many people have come to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. This place is practically completely exposed. If you don't mind, come with me." We, Zheng Jian and Wu Tong both revealed a troubled expression. Lin Muyu actually wanted to bring these two divine heaven realm experts back to the Empire to serve, but she did not think that they would faintly refuse. As a result, she said, "After today, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest will be exposed to all the cultivators of the world. There will be an endless stream of people who will come to cause trouble. If the two of you stay here, sooner or later, you will bring about a fatal disaster. Why don't you come with me?" A hint of excitement appeared in Zheng Jian's eyes. He cupped his hands and said, "Successor, Zheng Jian also wants to go with Master to see the outside world of the continent, but we definitely cannot leave the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, or else we will vanish into thin air." Why? Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Wu Tong pointed at the ground, his eyes flashing with difficulty. "Because there's a restriction placed underground. Before God Emperor Fuxi ascended, he left behind a restriction. Only in this area can we, the four absolutes of White Leaf, maintain our youth. Otherwise, with our trifling divine heaven realm cultivations, it's simply impossible for us to survive for 10,000 years. So, as long as we leave the area we guard, we will step out of the protection of the time restriction and instantly vanish into thin air, turning into a pile of bones. We actually should have died long ago." Lin Muyu was stunned. She clenched her fists and muttered, "How can I save you? How can I remove this restriction, or continue to maintain it?" Wu Tong smiled and said rather emotionally, "Successor's concern, Zheng Jian and I both understand, but Successor need not worry. Zheng Jian and I, one ice and one fire, have traversed this forest for over 10,000 years. What kind of opponent have we not seen? Even if we die, we will still guard the monolith left behind by the God Emperor. If Successor needs Zheng Jian and I to leave this place, we will naturally open our hearts and do our utmost to cultivate. Once we break through into the divine realm, we will be able to condense godhood and obtain eternal life. Naturally, we will be able to leave this place. This is also fine." Lin Muyu nodded. "Then I will wait for you to step into the divine realm, and come find me in the northern ridge." "Yes." The two of them cupped their fists together, their attitudes extremely respectful. It was as if they had already faintly taken Lin Muyu, the successor of Fuxi, as their new master. Not long after, Lin Muyu finished healing. It was time to replenish her strength. Therefore, she and Qinin gathered dry firewood and started a fire to roast the meat. When the pieces of swan and eye meat emitted a fragrance, Wu Tong and Zheng Jian, the two peerless experts, sat at the side and kept swallowing their saliva. They didn't know how long it had been since they had tasted good food. The meat was golden yellow. Lin Muyu sprinkled cumin, vegetable leaves, and other condiments on it. The golden grease slowly flowed down the texture of the meat. It was extremely tempting. Gulp! Wu Tong swallowed his saliva and said, "Successor, what meat is this?" "Swan and eye." "What? Could it be the meat of the ferocious beast Swan and eye?" "Yes." Lin Muyu said, "When we were training in the North Ridge, we were lucky enough to kill a swan and eye. We didn't waste it and cut off a lot of its meat. In a bit, you and Zheng Jian should have a taste. The swan knees meat contains abundant spiritual energy. Perhaps it can help the two of you break through into the deity realm a little earlier. However, the side effects are also rather strong. It has a dry and hot nature, so normal people simply can't endure it." Wu Tong smiled. "Successor, be at ease. This subordinate has cultivated the laws of ice for 10,000 years. No heat can invade my body. Then that's good." Lin Muyu nodded. Not long after, she cut up the meat and shared it. Qin snuggled up to her side. The two of them were currently recovering from their injuries. Eating the rich spiritual energy of the swan knees meat could speed up their recovery. As for Wu Tong and Zheng Jian, they didn't know when they had last eaten such delicacies. The two of them wolfed down the food like hungry ghosts that had been starving for tens of thousands of years. After eating, Wu Tong wiped his oily mouth and said, "Delicious. I really didn't think that there would be such delicious delicacies in this world." Lin Muyu glanced at him and asked, "Wu Tong, what did the two of you eat in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest before?" Wu Tong was somewhat silent, then said, "There were behemoths roaming around the vicinity of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, so normal prey simply didn't dare to enter. It was rare for us to be able to shoot down a few geese, swans, and other birds from the sky to satisfy our hunger. Normally, we wouldn't have such an opportunity, so we could only eat a few things that crawled on the ground, such as poisonous snakes and frogs. At the worst, we could only dig up underground rats and earthworms and roast them to eat." Lin Muyu couldn't help but dejectedly say, "The two of you have suffered." "It's fine." Wu Tong felt a tinge of bitterness in his heart. "The three of us were entrusted by God Emperor Fuxi, so no matter how much hardship we suffered, we still had to eat. Many thanks to Successor for your concern, and many thanks to Successor for this delicious meal." Lin Muyu asked, "Was it delicious?" Zheng Jian and Wu Tong simultaneously nodded. "Delicious. That's good." Lin Muyu faintly smiled. "Me and Xiao Yin still have quite a bit of swan and eye meat in our spatial bags. Once we leave the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, we'll leave some for you. Many thanks to Successor." The two simultaneously knelt down, their faces full of gratitude. Lin Muyu took the water pouch from Qin Yin's hands and drank a mouthful, then asked, "On our way here, we saw quite a few potholes on the road. It should have been the work of the two of you, right? Just what happened?" Wu Tong couldn't help but feel somewhat embarrassed. 10,000 years is truly too dry and boring, so this subordinate and Zheng Jian would arrange a duel once a month. Unfortunately, in these 10,000 years, a victor has never been decided. Zheng Jian also respectfully said, "I hope that Successor does not blame the two of us. These 10,000 years are truly too long. I can understand this feeling, so I naturally won't blame the two of you." Lin Muyu stood up and said, "It's fine. Since the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest has reappeared, your mission is almost complete. I will do my best to take away all the heavenly tomes and divine tomes, and leave the rest for the people of the world. You two should quickly cultivate and break through. Once you've broken through, come find me in the Empire. I will give you an important task." "Yes, Successor." Just then, the sound of horse hooves could be heard in the distance, as well as a human voice. "Your Highness, there's a stone monolith with divine characters. It's the earthly tome. Heavens, it's the earthly tome." "Good, immediately surround it and make a complete copy of it for me. Then smash it." "Yes." Wu Tong couldn't help but crease his brow. "Who is it that wants to smash the monolith?" Zheng Jian clenched his fist, the light of fire lingering around him. "Humph, if you want to smash the monolith, you'll have to ask my fist first. It's Qin Huan and the others." Lin Muyu faintly smiled. "Fire Fist and Ice Palm, it's time for you to carry out your mission. Go." "Yes, Successor. This subordinate will be back soon." Chapter 528. At dusk, dew fell upon the white leaves forest, soaking the grass and trees. A thin mist rose from the forest, like a white skirt. "Rustle." Qin Huan gripped his long sword and urged his horse forward. He dismounted, and two soldiers from the Iha kingdom waved their swords to cut down the thistles and shrubs, revealing a stone stele hidden under the shrubs. It was the Earth Tome stele inscription on the Law of Fire. "It's real." Qin Huan was extremely excited. He knelt on one knee in front of the stele, and gently wiped the dust off it with his palm. "It's the Earth Tome." Someone, wipe the surface of the stele clean, splash ink, and prepare to make a rubbing. Their method of making a rubbing was very simple. They would splash ink on the surface of the stele, and then cover it with a white cloth. Naturally, they would be able to copy all the inscriptions on the white cloth. Several Iha Kingdom soldiers walked forward and quickly wiped the steel clean. They then took out some ink and slowly poured it on the surface of the steel. Half a minute later, 2 soldiers unfurled a white cloth and covered the steel. Qin Huan personally used his palm to caress the surface of the white cloth. Very quickly, ink seeped out, and the inscriptions began to appear on the white cloth. Whoosh! The white cloth was placed on the grass, waiting for the ink to dry. It's done. Qin Huan lowered his head to look at the stone steel, which no longer had any value, and said, "Once we leave, there will definitely be even more cultivators coming here to steal the inscriptions. Moreover, the inscriptions of the Heavenly Tome Steel Forest cannot be stolen by the dogs of the Empire." Someone smashed the steel. The Heavenly Tome Steel Forest can only be used by our Iha Kingdom. Yes. 2 generals carrying warhammers dismounted from their horses and swung their warhammers. Just as they were about to descend, a fiery light suddenly exploded in the air, like an undying bird of fire. In the next moment, an expert wearing fire-red soft armor floated onto the steel. He narrowed his eyes at Qin Huan and the others, and indifferently said, "It's fine if you want to steal the inscriptions, but you actually want to smash the steel. Do you know that this is a treasure trove left behind by God Emperor Fuxi after several hundred years?" Qin Huan froze. Seeing the sacred heaven realm domain around the newcomer, he could not help but pale. Who are you?" "One of the guardians of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, Zhang Jian." Zhang Jian raised his finger, and a flame flew out, directly burning the white cloth that Qin Huan and the others had finished drawing on. His voice was extremely cold as he said, "I'll count to 3. Immediately scram from the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, or else I'll start a massacre." "You!" Qin Huan was furious. "What right do you have to burn our inscriptions? Bastard, I don't care what kind of Saint Heaven realm you are. Since you dare to make an enemy of me here, you are making an enemy of the Iha nation. Men, kill him at all costs." As he spoke, Qin Huan leapt onto his horse and galloped for a few hundred meters. He escaped to the shelter of a group of bodyguards. Yi Xuanhuan raised his sword and said, "Iron Armor Army, prepare to attack. Archers, get ready." One by one, the cavalrymen raised their steel shields and charged forward with all their might. It was completely like a confrontation between 2 armies. Zhang Jian didn't care too much. He raised his iron fist, and the fire spirit and raging flames danced around his fist. He punched out, and suddenly, a huge fiery red fist mark wreaked havoc in the air. After colliding with more than 10 people, it disappeared without a trace. Those people were all burned to ashes, and even their steel shields were melted, turning into a pool of fiery red molten iron that fell on the grass. Those who trespass into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest without permission, die. Zhang Jian leapt up and fiercely punched the ground with both fists. Immediately, with a bang, a wave of fire swept out in all directions. The several dozen cavalrymen from the Iha nation were pushed back again and again. Many of them were already on fire, screaming as they tumbled off their horses. Swish, swish, swish. Arrows fell like rain, and they were the latest crossbow bolts developed by the Iha nation. Their penetrative power was extremely tyrannical. "Hey," Zhang Jian sneered. Suddenly, he looked up to the sky and let out a shrill cry. Flaming shields condensed around his body, deflecting all the arrows from the Iha nation. Even the white drill arrows could not penetrate this flaming shield. Like a bolt of lightning, Zhang Jian's figure flew forward and heavily punched Yi Xuanhuan's long sword. Clang! The flaming fist was as hard as iron, and it actually caused Yi Xuanhuan, who was at the Holy King realm, to take a few steps back with his horse. Zhang Jian's iron fist swung, and directly smashed the heads of the 2 Heaven Realm warriors who had come forward to attack him into pieces. He opened his hand and grabbed the neck of another Earth Realm warrior, and the flames burned his body inch by inch. Zhang Jian's eyes had turned red because of the massacre, and he shouted in a low voice, "Why are you still here? Do you want to be killed here? Bastard!" Yi Xuanhuan wanted to help, but he was powerless. The Holy King Realm Fire Fist in front of him was too powerful, and the flaming shield could defend against the arrows. It was as if there was no one who could stop him. At this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly came from the sky. You haven't even tasted my ice palm, and you want to leave? Boom. A powerful frost energy descended, and a huge ice palm smashed into the ground, turning dozens of Iha country's armored cavalrymen into pieces. The huge palm print landed on the ground, and a dense icy aura spread out, causing people to shudder. Who is it this time? Qin Huan's mind was completely turned upside down. He had never faced so many peak experts before. Seeing the figure of Ice Palm Wutong landing on the ground, he immediately raised his long sword and said, "Spear and shield formation, surround him, and stab him into a hedgehog." A group of Iha Nation soldiers pounced forward with their shields at the front, forming a circle in pairs. Spears pierced through the gaps between the shields, and went straight for Wutong. This was the classic strategy that the Empire had used for many years to defeat the enemy with numbers. But Ice Palm Wutong was not a battle general who would charge and break through enemy lines. He was a martial artist with a deep cultivation, so it was much easier for him to deal with this sort of battle technique. He took in a deep breath, and instantly, the power of the ice laws in the air was almost completely absorbed by him. In the next moment, Wutong's figure flickered, and he struck out with over 10 palms in a row. Bang bang bang. Shocking sounds rang out incessantly. Wave after wave of Ice Palm Wutong shattered the Iha Nation's steel shields, and the palm force penetrated through the soldiers' bodies, killing them and freezing them into ice cubes at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Iha Nation soldiers retreated in all directions. Those who were slightly slower had already become corpses. Ice Palm Wutong stood where he was with a calm expression, and there were already over 100 corpses around him. The Holy Realm was equivalent to 1,000 people, and the God Realm was equivalent to 10,000 people. This wasn't an empty rumor. Pinnacle Saint Domain experts like Wu Tong and Zheng Jian could indeed kill 1,000 elite soldiers in a chaotic battle formation if they went all out. Demons, they're demons. Qin Huan's entire body trembled. He suddenly grabbed Yi Xuanhuan's wrist and said, "Commander Yi, quickly think of something. What should we do? The soldiers can't hold on any longer. You have to act." Yi Xuanhuan's expression was stern. "Your Highness, these two people are both at the peak of the Holy Domain. This general is not their match. It's said that a Holy Domain expert can fight against 1,000 people. We've only brought 1,000 soldiers, so we're not their match. Let's go, let's leave this place. We can't stay here for long, or else we might lose our lives." Qin Huan's heart was filled with unwillingness, but preserving his life was more important. He immediately grabbed the reins, spurred his horse around, and said, "Retreat, retreat for me. Leave this forest of monoliths." As he watched Qin Huan and the others leave, Wu Tong crossed his arms and sneered, "A motley crew. This is the legendary Iha Nation? Heh, what a bunch of rookies." Zheng Jian clenched his fists and indifferently said, "It seems like the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest is truly about to appear. More and more people know about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, and we're destined to be unable to defend it." "It doesn't matter," Wu Tong coldly said. "Aren't we the spiritual scholar Su Hao? His Heavenly Tome of Life can resurrect dead experts, and this place, the dead experts will very quickly become a fighting force to guard the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest." Zheng Jian looked at the corpses of the Iha Nation soldiers and said, "These rookies probably don't even have the qualifications to be a fighting force. Resurrecting them is just a waste of the Heavenly Tome." "That's true." At this moment, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin walked out of the shrubbery. "Successor." Zheng Jian and Wu Tong cupped their fists and respectfully bowed. Lin Muyu looked at the surrounding battle situation and said, "These people left." "Yes, they were defeated and left. That's good." Lin Muyu creased her brow, her gaze falling on a stone monolith in the shrubbery to the side. "Oh, another earthly tombstone monolith. Xiaoyin, go read it. If you don't understand any of the characters, ask me." Thank you, big brother you." Qin Yin gracefully walked forward, her hands on her knees. She stood in front of the stone monolith, her round and perky buttocks sticking out as she read the divine characters. She was extremely focused, and completely did not notice that Wu Tong and Zheng Jian were also absent-mindedly looking at her. On the other hand, Lin Muyu's heartbeat sped up. Not only was Qin Yin beautiful, her figure was also first-rate. The standard S-shaped curve was extremely rare in this plane. And if she were to assume this posture, it would practically take someone's life. Big brother you, this character, I don't recognize it. Qin Yin suddenly said. Oh, Lin Muyu walked forward and earnestly taught her. This two horizontal and curved hooks is called the yin character, which is the yin character for floating clouds in the sky. As for this is the rong character, which is the rong character for a lifetime of military service, and this is the bing character for marching in battle. In the end, there were dozens of characters that Qin Yin did not recognize, and Lin Muyu had to teach her one by one. Furthermore, he had to control himself from reading the entire paragraph, or else the earthly tome on this monolith would be comprehended by him. It seemed that the higher the level of the earthly tome, the more characters there were. This earthly tome had close to 300 characters, and after reading all of them, Qin Yin was instantly stunned. The next moment, the stone monolith slowly crumbled into dust. This monolith had already been comprehended by Qin Yin, and it was an earthly tome of the law of ice. Its attack power was very impressive. The strength of Qin Yin's soul was not very strong, and suddenly showed signs of fainting. Lin Muyu hurriedly supported her, but in the end, Qin Yin's eyes were tightly shut, and she had already lost consciousness. Without any other choice, Lin Muyu could only give Qin Yin a princess carry. Looking at her peaceful yet tired face, her heart ached. Successor, what do we do now? Wu Tong asked. Lin Muyu said, rest for a night. When Xiao Yin recovers her soul power tomorrow, we will set off to Spirit Scholar Su Hao's place. I want to learn the earthly tome grade of inscription. Yes. I don't know if Spirit Scholar Su Hao will be able to resist Luo Lan and the others, Lin Muyu said worriedly. Zheng Jian laughed, cupped his fists and said, Successor, you don't have to worry too much. Su Hao's martial arts cultivation is definitely inferior to mine and Ice Palm Wu Tong's, but his heavenly tome cultivation is far above the two of us. In these 10,000 years, who knows how many heavenly tomes and divine tomes he has inscribed, and there are also many ghost generals on guard around Su Hao. Even if Luo Lan really does go, Su Hao will be safe and sound. That's good. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.